yeah, I'm a law student. I'm in Maryland. I talk about politics, and I do some memeing on my streams. I stream on Twitch and YouTube, and yeah, I don't know, should be fun.
Wonderful. Next, I'm going to throw it over to TheTerk.
Hi, I'm TheTerk. I'm a science and tech streamer and YouTuber, and you can catch me at twitch.tv/TheTerk or at YouTube. I'm right-leaning and usually one of the few and proud conservatives on these panels, so good to see all y'all tonight.
Happy to have you on. Next, I'm throwing it over to Rob Noerr.
Hi, everyone. I'm Rob Noerr. If you're watching Dylan's channel from before, I was just on here debating a good friend of mine, Pisco. So, yeah, I'm conservative. I ran for Congress in the 2019 special election in District 12. I'm a Trump supporter. But more than that, I would say I'm someone who's critical of the establishment on both sides. I have a small radio show out of Williamsport that I do on Saturdays, 11 a.m. till 1 p.m. And then you can find me at Normal America with Rob Noerr on Twitch, DLive, YouTube, and Periscope. And I will be doing a 24-hour live stream Monday, the day before the election, starting at 8 a.m. So feel free to join me there. But pleasure to be here as always, Dylan. Thank you.
Happy to have you on. Next, I'm going to throw it over to Joe Lewis.
What's going on? I'm Joe Lewis, the O's a Zero. You can also find me on Twitch at Joe Lewis, the O is a Zero. Thanks for having me, Dylan. Glad to be here.
No problem. Next, I'm throwing it over to Counterpoints.
Yeah, hi guys. Counterpoints. I do have a YouTube channel. Counterpoints, small but growing. I'm pretty centristy. The things that make me right wing are pretty much guns, immigration, and some limitations on abortion. But I'm pretty centristy, and I actually voted for Joe Biden, so I might actually balance out the panel tonight and help try to keep things centered.
No problem. Next, we're going to pass it over to CTV.
Yeah, I'm just a guy that served 9 years on Ohio-class submarines as a machinist made auxiliarman. I've controlled atmospheres, ran diesel engines, ran huge hydraulic plants, and spent quite a bit of time underneath the water living in an artificial environment. I enjoy talking about politics and history, and am looking forward to discussing why I believe Trump is a better candidate than Joe Biden.
Okay, and we just had Harkdan join. On time, as always. You want to start it off?
Yeah, sure.
With your intro.
Oh, hey, I'm Harkdan. I'm just I'm a landlord, and I've also done a lot of stuff with tech in the past, and I am the original Joe Biden stan. Since the very beginning of Joe Biden's existence, I have been his #1 supporter, and I would die for the man.
Wonderful. And Destiny, I know you can hear me. You're in the voice chat. Could you try to join the whereby?
Yeah, is there a reason why this wouldn't be working right now?
Not
like a trick to this?
Not particularly. Not that I know of.
Okay. Well, okay. What's up? My camera's just not showing up in the thing. I feel like I have a decent level of tech competency, but it's not working, and I don't know why, and it's triggering me. Sorry, I'll figure it out.
I had the same problem, by the way. I had to use a webcam.
So Destiny. So basically,
yeah.
I remember I had to use a program called Snap Camera originally because there's only so many outputs. Apparently, I forget exactly how it works, but yeah, you have a certain number of outputs.
Yeah. Anyway, I'm Destiny. Twitch.tv/Destiny. People know me as being one of the most adamant Biden supporters on the platform, and I'm here to ruthlessly attack anybody that would dare question his legitimacy as ascending to the throne of presidency of the United States. He's clearly the better and superior choice, which I think is reflected right now in the polling averages across battleground states and the rest of the country. So I'm excited here to celebrate Biden's ascension to the throne.
Okay, wonderful. Great. So we're going to start it off. Mr. Geek, if you could help Destiny out in DMs or something with the whereby, that'd be wonderful. Mr. Geek, of course, is my co-host and wonderful editor. So we're going to start off with the first topic, which we only have 2 topics today, so we're going to actually have a shorter Hippie Dippie podcast than normal. It is just 2 simple topics. Why should or shouldn't you vote for Joe Biden, and why should or shouldn't you vote for Donald Trump? Let me start off with the rules. The first rule is, of course, nothing TOS. If you do anything TOS, it's an instant ban from the show. You'd be kicked off. off, completely gone. Second rule is during intro segments. That means the first period where people will be stating their positions. You get about 1 to 2 minutes to state your position on an issue, uninterrupted, where nobody can interrupt you. And if you do interrupt somebody, you will be muted. The same thing will be done at the end of the segment. Everybody will get a 1 to 2 minute period of time where they'll be able to state their position. And finally, one last time. The other rule is you cannot at other people in the Twitch chat. I've just found that it's made people get more heated. So, one second, Destiny, let me meet you in the whereby. And so generally just don't at other people in the Twitch chat. It just gets people more heated, and I try to have a somewhat productive conversation. If you interrupt too much, I will step in and tell you to please hold yourself back or allow somebody else to speak. But mostly, I would like to try to stay back and let you guys interact. If you do, then eventually, if you don't heed my warnings, you will be muted for a short period of time to allow the other person to speak. So that's most of the rules. I don't think I'm... Oh, and there's one last thing. I just want to say to the audience generally, this is a roundtable show. These are all these people's opinions. Please do not make a determination of who to vote for off of one roundtable or your favorite streamer. Please go out, read other sources, go listen to experts, and look at their platforms yourself. Do not just go onto somebody's thing and say, I don't know who to vote for. Let me check in with my favorite streamer. That's really stupid. That's super small brain. Don't do that. This is just something that might be able to supplement that large area of information going into, and it's also for a small and it's also somewhat entertainment. So please keep that in mind when looking at this. Nobody here is an expert on anything we're going to be generally talking about today, and if they are, they will probably state that out front when talking about a certain issue. So just remember that when we're talking about this election. And please, everybody, do go vote. If you have the ability to vote at this point, if you are an American, please go do that. We would really appreciate if you participated in this extremely important election, no matter who you are voting for. So we're going to start with the first topic, which is going to be on the presidential candidate trying to vie to remove the incumbent. Why should or shouldn't you vote for Joe Biden? We're going to start in the top left-hand corner with Riley Grace Roshong. You have 1 to 2 minutes.
All right, wonderful, thank you. Fundamentally, my arguments all come down to, I'm not going to say that Biden is a perfect person, but he is better than Trump. I think that he is better than Trump in 3 demonstrable ways, and I'm going to go through them. The first is that I would say that he responded better to BLM. All that Trump needed to do fundamentally was to be able to pass a meaningful police reform through the Congress in order to be able to address BLM. He didn't. It's going to die in the Senate, and he could have gone down to McConnell and be like, hey, the George Floyd police, the act responding to everything that we've been talking about in BLM needs to be able to be passed so we can resolve all this. Go do that, and you never did. Biden comparatively has proposed a number of different solutions to be able to address police brutality in America. He talked about making serious investments in mental health services, drug treatment and prevention programs, and services for people experiencing homelessness, as well as a lot of different kind of refunding services, taking funds away from overfunded police departments and putting them towards more social services that would be better equipped to be able to handle specific circumstances that the police shouldn't handle. He also was not in charge with dealing with COVID, and actually has a plan with dealing with it. I incorporate all of the arguments I made on the previous stream that Trump has just drastically mishandled the COVID-19 crisis and has resulted in the death in over 200,000 Americans by virtue of that mishandling. I incorporate all those from before, but we can go over them specifically. And then I would say he actually believes in climate change. Trump has gone on repeatedly to say that he doesn't believe in current climate change science. Biden actually does, and he wants to actually invest a lot of money in being able to address the problems that are very imminent and brought about by climate change. And if we don't address, then we're going to be in for a really tough time in the future. Those would be my main 3 arguments. There are others to make, but I think that those are the strongest.
Wonderful. I'm going to pass it now over to TheTerk.
So there's probably no doubt that Joe Biden is a nice guy, and he's, pulling a lot of emotional strings right now that are helping him out a lot in the polls. But unfortunately, when I look at the joebiden.com, there's a lot of policies that are not really good, especially when it comes to protecting the Constitution. Primarily, his stance on gun violence and gun control is not a good thing for us as Americans. And then his plans towards supporting the Green New Deal or using the Green New Deal as a framework, I don't agree with how that's being implemented. I'm still learning about all the science and stuff behind it. And then just as a whole, going through a lot of the different media outlets and learning from all sorts of different liberal sources, Joe Biden is quote unquote the leader of the Democrat Party, but there is a entire skew to the far left of the Democrat Party, and that's just something that I don't support, and I believe that our country is in going to be in dire straits if we go that far left. There's probably plenty of room for this thing we used to do called compromise, but unfortunately, the Democrats and the Democratic leadership at this point are just not capable and unwilling to do that.
Okay, I'm adding a new rule to chat. If you make any more Among Us memes in chat, your voter registration will be revoked and you will be removed from the United States. You will no longer be allowed to vote in the election. Just throwing that out there. Next, I'm going to throw it over to Rob Noerr.
Yeah, and if your voter registration gets removed, you will only be able to vote for Democrat, or if you die for that matter. But yeah, I think that Trump is the preferred candidate. So let's start with why Biden is wrong, which was this area of the topic. I think that a vote for Biden is a vote for the corrupt establishment. Biden has been in office for 47 years and has never done anything, passed any meaningful legislation that actually helped the average American. Instead, he epitomizes the corrupt establishment. When you hear Black Lives Matter and other groups talk about systemic racism, it's funny because it's been people like Joe Biden that have been in charge of those systems for 47 years. Yet he's supposedly the one who's going to save us from all of this. He is corrupt, and we can see on China. He's not even willing to call China an adversary. We find out why now, because we could see that he's connected to the CCP through business relationships through his son. He actually did use a quid pro quo to force the firing of a prosecutor looking into his son's corrupt company. He wants to do radical things such pack the courts. He's just an empty suit for the most radical people in the establishment and in the extreme left wing. He is involved in corruption. A vote for Joe Biden is a vote for the corrupt media that refuses to even cover stories of his corruption. And this will lead to things like when Joe Biden gets us into the next foreign war, which no doubtably he will do, because we see the Democrats are now the party of refusing to pull troops out. So when we add troops around the world, you will not be allowed to criticize Joe Biden. Tech will censor you. The media will refuse to cover those foreign regime change wars, just like they did under the Iraq war. The Green New Deal portion of his things will cost trillions of dollars and be a disaster. And also, he is the candidate of riots. The Democratic Party is the party that is burning down the country. The reason that DC and Chicago are boarding up businesses right now is because they are afraid that Biden voters will riot. And Biden's vice presidential candidate, including some of his staffers, have actively pushed for bail for these people that were arrested for riots. So we should reject Joe Biden because the argument is vote for Joe Biden or we'll burn everything down. And I don't respond well to those sort of threats.
Okay, next I'm going to throw it over to Joe Lewis.
I just want to very quickly say thank you to everybody who's on the panel today and who's watching within my chat and this stream. And I hope everybody's doing very well. As the visual representative of the black vote, since people argue that it's 12% of the electorate, and I am the 12% at about like 0.96 if we say the 8 members of this panel, I'm glad to be here. I hope this is going to be a fun hang. I'm essentially, for myself, I'm voting for a terrain of struggle. And the terrain of struggle that I'm choosing for myself is Joe Biden. While you can agree that Donald Trump has done a few very small pieces of legislation that could be good moving forward, I do not necessarily trust his ability to have continual legislation that could lead to some type of change or even a passing of the torch that could be considered legitimate. I'm sure we're going to have plenty of time to talk about the First Step Act and then the Platinum Plan. That's going to be something for a little bit later. But my general gist is the three things that I'm looking for a candidate is a candidate that is going to protect and preserve all forms of civic engagement. That includes political activism, national service, environmentalism, and community service, as well as a candidate that's going to preserve the black vote. And while we can have a conversation for hours upon hours about why I feel Joe Biden would protect the black vote more so than Donald Trump, in interest of time, I'm just going to say that's why I'm voting for Joe Biden. Again, we're going to have plenty of time to talk about all of these things.
Okay, next I'm going to be throwing it over to Counterpoints.
Yeah, so basically, I'll, as the centrist person or whatever, I'll try to address both sides of the coin. So, why should you vote for Joe Biden? And it's going to be a return to the status quo. It's going to get the deep state back in line. It's going to make sure the presidency and the American political machine are in alignment. And then, Joe Biden should have a base level of competency. I can actually see why this would be the exact talking point that the, anti-establishment, conservative anti-establishment leftists would not like. But at the same time, I think we've seen kind of like the potential disaster that's come from having a executive branch and a, basically American political machine that are completely out of step and don't seem to agree on anything, which is why I bring up competency. So while I think there are other things, like, so for instance, I think, getting police reform through is possible. I also do, tip the hat to the conservative side that, basically there's other things that we're concerned about. The reason why I begrudgingly voted for, Joe Biden and not happily voted for him is basically because of some of those conservative talking points. I generally speaking don't like the perspective of Democrats on immigration. I generally speaking think that there probably is a sweet spot for taxation that sometimes Democrats go too far on. And then also anytime that a Democrat talks about guns or gun control, I basically have a small fucking aneurysm. So it was really fucking hard for me to vote for Joe Biden. But hopefully I brought up a few of the reasons why you should, and a few of the reasons why I might be on the verge of having a stroke if gun control gets passed in the next 4 years.
Okay, next I'm going to throw it over to Harkdan.
Man, I'm not sure where to start. So I don't have a deep passion for the issues, I think, as kind of many of you guys seem to at this case. What I will say is that I have a unique situation, and I'll say that the number one reason that I want to have Joe Biden as my president, it's probably climate change, but the real reason that I want him to be president is I'm tired of hearing about politics. I'm tired of having a fucking lunatic in the White House. I want to be able to unfollow the president on Twitter and not worry that I'm missing some like crazy fucking like about to go to war with Iran every day. I'm tired of it. In this last 4 years, I never gave a shit about fucking politics, and I don't want to care about politics. It's fucking boring. They all do the same shit, Republicans and lefties, the whole thing. And I'm just sick of it. I'm just so sick of it. And you know what? Joe Biden hasn't done shit. But then again, neither have most fucking senators or congressmen during their fucking time. You have to be president to kind of do that, and you still need the House and the fucking Senate to do it in the meantime. So I don't fault him for that. Bernie's done fuck all anyways, but no one would doubt that motherfucker would be radical as insane, right? He's like named a few post offices, and that's his like legislative achievement during his whole career. So let me be crystal clear. Climate change is good, but I'm just tired of hearing about this shit. I'm tired of everyone thinking that our country is fucking batshit insane. And one more thing to throw out here. I'm a veteran. I'm a guy who was previously homeless. Now I'm fucking rich, and I sit and I play video games all day. And I'll tell you fucking what right now. All you guys, you're not rich. I don't know why you're voting for Trump. If I'm voting for Biden, you guys have no excuse. I have guns. I have all this shit. It makes no sense to me whatsoever. You're not getting any tax breaks. I'm getting tax breaks. I definitely am getting tax breaks. Yep, I'm getting taxed more. You're getting less social benefits for sure. You guys ain't getting that shit. Doesn't affect me. I'll pay $3,000 a month for health insurance. Doesn't bother me. You guys are getting screwed across the board. But with all those things said, let's just get back to basics. How great would it be just to wake up and unfollow Joe Biden? Because all he does is like fucking tweet like press release bullshit every day, and you're just tired of it. Let me get to that life, okay? One last thing. I was very close to thinking about voting for Trump before he was actually there, and I'll tell you why, okay? Trump was going to be the promised one. The rich guy who didn't give a fuck, and he would bring things back to, he wouldn't care. He doesn't care about your lobbyists. Fuck you, you're gone. You know, he doesn't care. He doesn't need your money anymore. But he didn't turn into that. He became more corrupt than the shit. It's like the fucking Star Wars. He was supposed to destroy them, not join them. And he did it, right? And that's where we're at. So, all right. That's where I'm at. I'm done.
Okay, next I'm going to throw it over to Destiny.
I like Joe Biden more, I guess, on 4 big things are what I'm looking at right now. For the 2 policy-related reasons, I think that healthcare is going to be incredibly important to U.S. policy going forward, and the Republicans have failed to deliver on the repeal and replace. All they did was repeal the mandate, and we have no new Republican healthcare plan. I don't even know what their new plan is. They keep saying something about pre-existing conditions, which we already had under the ACA, so I'm not sure what that talking point is about. I don't know how much longer we're going to deal with the coronavirus stuff. The current administration has already proven that they are unimaginably incompetent when it comes to dealing with these issues. So I don't want them to deal with it more. If it takes another year or 2 to get a vaccine out, I don't want Trump to be leading the country through that, because holy fuck. On 2 personal reasons, the personal debt that Trump has kind of makes me a little bit nervous. We have a lot of personal debt for $400 million that's coming to fruition, like in the following few years. I don't know if I want a guy making decisions at the very top with that much personal leverage, or other people with that much leverage on him. It might be a bad thing. It might be an okay thing, but it could be a really bad thing, which is enough to make me incredibly uncomfortable. And then in terms of leadership, Trump sucks as a leader, man. He's not good at unifying the country. He's not good at bringing anybody together. We had the most historic riots happening in the history of the United States, and they happened under Trump. Blame Democrats all you want, but Trump was at the head for it. And, like any good businessman knows, you can't continue to blame your subordinates. You can't blame governors or blame mayors for all of these problems happening under your administration. Take some fucking responsibility and fix these goddamn problems. And Trump has proven time and time again he's incapable of doing that.
Okay, and we're going to finish the intros off with CTV, otherwise known as Critically Thinking Veteran.
Thank you, Dylan. I want to say thanks to everybody for showing up tonight. Really appreciate getting to have the conversation. Being the last after all of these great minds is a bit daunting, to be honest. So what I'll say is that Dan seemed to kind of hint at the fact that he was a veteran and didn't want to hear about politics anymore. Brother, I completely understand. That being said, freedom has a responsibility, and just because you don't want to hear about it doesn't mean that you can just turn your nose to the process and trying to pass that on. So that's where I would be at on that. Why somebody should not vote for Joe Biden comes down to a lot of his history. 47 years he's been in office, or he's been in public office, involved with the government, has been a part of, the 93 crime bill. And I mean, hell, during that time, he even called, black males super predators, right? Which kind of goes back into even more of his past when you understand that he had a long friendship with Strom Thurmond, who was, somebody that was definitely for racial segregation, right? And then you kind of play into some of the other things that Biden said, like his interview with Charlemagne, where he said, if you don't know if you're for me or Trump, then you ain't black, right? So somebody that has been involved in the system for as long as he has had more than an ample opportunity to see what I believe is one of the core root problems that we're facing as a nation, which is ending the war on drugs. This needs to stop, right? And I don't think that someone that has basically profited off the misfortune of others for so long, having been to the second highest level of office in the land and still not doing anything there, I don't think that it would be responsible for us, the American people, to give that guy the keys to the kingdom when he hasn't even been able to show that he knows how to operate at all the other levels. And with that, I'm done.
Okay, intros are finished. We will now have about an hour to possibly an hour and 15 minutes of this topic, and then afterwards we would do outros. Anyone is free to take it away.
I'm just real quick. Are we were we supposed to make shit up in this intro, or are we supposed to stick to like the actual stuff that happened?
Yeah, with that being said, I got to leave with something because there's something that really just drove me up a fucking wall. I'm just going to take this quote. I'm going to quote this right now. This is a quote from Hillary Clinton back in the 90s. Just as in my previous generation, we had an organized effort against the mob. We need to take these people on. They are often connected to big drug cartels. They are not just gangs of kids anymore. They often are kinds of kids that are called super predators. No conscience, no empathy. We can talk about why they ended up that way, but first we have to bring them to heel. Hillary Clinton said that, not Joe Biden. So we have to set that record straight. If we're talking about my fucking people, we have to set that straight from the jump. I will jump down everybody's fucking throat if they misrepresent black people. I'm going to say that now. So if you want to go down that road, we can go down that road, but tread fucking carefully because I will shove my dick down your throat.
That was one thing I was going to talk about real quick.
I don't really know how you're planning on
high horse
that over the internet, but it certainly is a funny thing to try to imagine, I guess.
The idea, I don't know where this, I know that Trump said it during one of the debates, and I don't know if everybody just like repeats them because you don't fact check anything he says, but this idea that Biden called people super predators, Hillary Clinton did that. I don't know if Biden is just like an amalgamation of every person we hate. So we just describe everything that Obama and Hillary did to Biden, but yeah, Biden never said that. Just a couple of quick things that I heard. Democrats refuse to pull troops out. We haven't pulled troops out of any country that we have active wars in. We still have troops in Syria. We still have troops in Iraq. We still have, like, this idea that we pulled troops out of anywhere hasn't happened under Trump. CCP links to Biden, that hasn't happened. Tucker Carlson even dropped that story. Bobulinski, in his reporting, never confirmed any of that. The Wall Street Journal tried to verify that. They couldn't. That's why they didn't publish the story. And in terms of a quid pro quo happening because of Biden's son being involved in some dealings in other countries in Ukraine, that didn't happen either. The prosecutor that was removed was working during a time period when Joe Biden's son wasn't even working in that country. So all of these things are just patently false. And then now we can talk about actual things that have happened.
Okay, well, it's nice that you say that without any facts. But first, just to get to the facts of it, I agree with you. Biden did not say super predator. He did, even according to CNN in 1993, in the crime bill that many in the Black community were opposed to, said that it was predators that we have to get off the street. So you're right. He didn't use the word super. He just used the word predator. Seems like an odd thing to get in your high horse and threaten to, like, orally rape people over. But I guess whatever.
You think there's not a difference between claiming that Biden called Black people super predators rather than he just said the word predator at some point? Is that the bar that we've set, that anybody that said predator at any point in time is a bad person?
No, that's not what I'm saying. I was willing to say even before you did that actually it was true. It's not true that he called them super predators. What I'm saying is if the distinction is the word super makes it wrong, but just the word predator doesn't, that seems to be a nonsensical distinction. I don't really care about the fact that he called them predators. As far as I'm concerned, I think the 93 crime bill that he pushed for, I think he and the others that voted for it probably had good intentions and wanted to get criminals off the street. That's why you won't hear me in any of my streams make this claim. I'm just making the claim that he did say predators. That's all I'm saying. So the idea that this was like, oh, he never said that, it was just Hillary Clinton. No, he said predators as well. Just saying. Again, it's not my argument, though.
I don't know how you're trying to, like, twist this into you're right. He did not say super predator. That was the claim earlier. That claim is not
He's
true.
literally not saying that, though.
Well, okay,
That's
that's
not-
fine. But earlier, the claim was that he said super predator. I'm saying that quote, when you say super predator, you're trying to bring up a very specific quote.
If
mind by Hillary Clinton, he did not say that. If you want to now vaguely go, well, he called people predators in a crime bill. No fucking shit. He mentioned the word predator in a crime bill. But what do you think crime bills are supposed to stop as predators?
No, but
no shit.
If for no other reason than to end this particular line of conversation, I will say that was my take. So I will say that I am sorry for including the word super, but the point still is that predator was used by Joe Biden in the course of his conversations about the 93 crime bill. And I'm looking at
okay, and Trump wanted the people from the Central Park to literally go to jail after they're proven innocent.
I want every single Republican in here, people that are voting for Trump, that are trying to attack Joe Biden on his record on race. I want to know what you think about Donald Trump's position on the Central Park Five, even after they were exonerated.
I think Donald. I don't think that his
I can take that
rationale
if
had
you
anything
want.
to do with. I don't think his rationale had anything provably to do with race. I thought that he maybe thinks that they were guilty, and that's what his position was. Now, let me turn the question to you, Destiny. What do you think about, I don't know, Joe Biden saying that Black people aren't Black if they don't vote for him, or eulogizing a grand cyclops of the KKK, or his vice presidential candidate meeting with an anti-Semite named Jacob Blake Sr. that posted all sorts of anti-Semitism and things from Louis Farrakhan's Nation of Islam that said that called Jews pink-toed and other things like that. And she said she was, quote, very proud of him. What do you think of that?
I don't care what person a vice presidential candidate is eulogized. Like, you can throw your hands up. But so Donald Trump specifically says he feels like the Central Park Five, those 5 Black kids, should have been killed after they were exonerated. That's one thing. Donald Trump has come out and he's supported things like stop and frisk. I think it's always funny that we try to look for these, like, vague connections. Like, well, the vice presidential candidate meted with a guy that used to be in the KKK. Donald Trump has the KKK supporting him right now. Donald Trump right now on stage can't say, I just
Richard Spencer's voting for Joe Biden.
No, Richard Spencer said he was voting for Tulsi Gabbard.
Well, he said he supports Joe Biden over Donald Trump.
What does that have to do with anything? First of all,
you just said the KKK is supporting Trump, and when I point out the biggest white nationalist leader, no, but he's the biggest white nationalist leader. So where's your comment on that?
Who do you think has an agenda more in line with white nationalism? The guy that supports stop and frisk, Sheriff Joe Arpaio, says he wants to ban all Muslims from the country, wants the Central Park Five still executed after they were exonerated, or the guy that's talking about passing historic legislation to empower Black communities?
I think the guy that pushed for historic funding for historically Black universities, that pushed prison reform that wasn't able to be achieved under Obama, that pushed all sorts. I think that had record unemployment for Black Americans. I think he would be preferable on this agenda, other than the candidate of the party. Just real quick, and I'll leave you. The candidate from the Democratic Party that we see, like, historically going after Jews in New York and attacking Jews because they're. Yes, like de Blasio in New York right now, a Democrat that's going after Jews in unprecedented ways. The attacks. That's why they would prefer a Republican ticket and a Republican president over. Or that's why people like the KKK and white supremacists would prefer to vote Democrat, because Democrats are now endorsing the ideas from people like Louis Farrakhan, the Nation of Islam, and people like de Blasio that are attacking Jewish people.
Where's the endorsement coming from? Like,
But
holy
there's
shit!
plenty of
Okay,
extreme
so
sides
one
that are
thing-
going for the Democratic side as well. You can't just say, oh, all these super white nationalists are going Trump. There's plenty on the other side that are going the other way too. So you can't just say one side's bad and the other side's good.
Well, I'm not saying just because of where they come from, but I'm saying, like, in terms of what their agenda is aligned with, the idea that you would look at Joe Biden's agenda and say this aligns with white supremacists is insane to me.
I'm not saying that, but you're making the counter argument, in which I'm rebutting. You're making the argument that Republicans are the party of that white supremacists would identify with. We could clearly see the majority of anti-Semitic rhetoric coming from official people in the Democratic Party.
Do you see how you keep pivoting to other topics because you know you're not correct?
It's not a pivot.
And why
you don't think white supremacists are anti-Semites?
We're talking about very specifically this conversation open with statements that Biden made related to black people, super predators, right? And now we're talking about the Central Park Five, and now we've made it about Jewish people somehow. I don't know what your political affiliation is.
Can I address
because you mentioned the KKK?
Yeah, Counterpoints doesn't say anything, and then I want to throw it to Joe because Joe wanted to say something earlier.
Sure.
Okay, so when this has nothing to do with whether or not Trump is competent, and has nothing to do with whether or not he's right in saying that he wants to kill the Central Park Five after they've been exonerated and all that kind of shit. I literally just want to talk about the events of the night of the Central Park Five, and then I want to talk about how criminal investigations get broken down. Okay, so and then we can talk about how that affects culture in the presidency. I'll try to be as brief as I possibly can be. So on the night that basically the Central Park Five were charged and convicted, as far as my understanding goes, basically there was pretty much a whole bunch of kids. I think it was between 30 and 100 different people running around in the middle of the night, beating the shit out of people, robbing people. And one of the things that ended up happening during that evening was a lady was hit over the head with a brick and raped repeatedly by a whole bunch of people, basically gang raped by a whole bunch of people. While that was occurring, there was roughly 30 people who were all present at that time, some of whom partook in the rape and some of people who didn't. So when they arrested some of the people who were running around beating the fuck out of people and basically being assholes, what ended up happening was during the police interviews, whether they were coerced or not, everybody started pointing the finger at everybody else, and that's how they obtained the convictions for this brutal gang rape. So while DNA evidence exonerated these kids, while there were post facto, as far as I know, exonerations from the police using aggressive and possibly illegal interrogation tactics in order to obtain the evidence that led to these convictions, there still are very real crimes. So my frustration with this conversation is we have to basically acknowledge that there's something fucked up that happened, that people have a right to be upset about it.
No, we don't. That is absolutely not true.
I don't have the right to be upset that a woman was
you don't have a right to
for no
use
reason with a
that
brick and then raped repeatedly by a crowd.
Not at the people that didn't do it. No.
Okay, what if they were standing there, Destiny?
Then
what if they watched it?
Then you should have charged them with either aiding or watching or whatever.
But they didn't. But they didn't aid. They just watched.
Okay, but what were they charged with?
It doesn't fucking matter because that's not a criminal conviction. Okay, hold on. Do you think? Hold on. No, I love going in on Destiny. This is super fun for me. So do you think that cops catch most criminals?
Probably not generally.
Absolutely fucking not. We don't. Do you think that we even convict most criminals?
Probably. That would be my guess. Is probably not. It's probably hard to know how many criminals aren't convicted because the data is hard to get. But I guess probably not.
Right. So innocence to me, as a police officer, which maybe this is a fucked up position, but I'm gonna say it anyways. Innocence to me means very little to me personally. I am personally innocent.
You said you were a cop?
Yeah.
Oh, that all makes sense now. Okay.
Dude, we've talked before.
Okay, I don't remember your view on. My aunt is NYPD, so she has similarly fucking horrible views on innocence in the United States. You are innocent in the eyes of the state. It is on the burden of the state to bring a case against you and prove that you committed a crime. Nobody else gets to make that decision of oh, well, I think they're guilty. Just most criminals aren't convicted. Blah 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 blah. The reality is that these 5 boys were convicted of a crime. Later on, they were exonerated. They were paid $41 million to settle that suit. And Donald Trump, after their exoneration, took out 4 different full-page ads saying that he wanted them killed. Now, whether or not you think, well, don't we have a right to be mad that they were standing there? I guess if you want, but that is not at all related to what's going on here. That has nothing to do with the fact that they were wrongfully convicted. And after their exoneration, Trump, as a burgeoning real estate developer, still took out 4 full-page ads saying that they should have been killed afterwards.
Okay, so all right, so let me, so we don't have to leave anything in the air. Fuck Donald Trump and fuck his perspective and fuck his shit. And then also in reference to the judicial system, it's my same perspective as democracy, where our justice system is what is it? It's like what Winston Churchill said about democracy, where it's like democracy is the worst form of government except for all the other ones. That's how I feel about the American
system. America is beautiful. The burden is on the state for you to
prove that
judicial
you system in the
committed a
world,
crime.
except for all the other ones.
Sure, but I think it is a bad perspective, especially somebody in law enforcement, to think that like, well, not everybody's convicted, so there are criminals out there that we just haven't convicted yet. No, if you haven't convicted them, if you don't get that conviction, which is the burden of the state to do, then they're innocent and they walk, and that's it. Like, full stop. Like, you don't get to try to second guess. Like, well, I think they're guilty. Blah 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 blah. Like, the burden's on the state to prove the case. They couldn't. It was overturned by DNA evidence. So you walk from it. The idea that we can start to play like this post hoc, like executioner role of like, well, I think they really did it, like we're the Punisher or something, I think is a severely fucked perspective on how criminal justice ought to work.
I mean, I am not trying to become the, I'll say this last thing. I'll let everybody else talk after this. Okay. I am not trying to become the Punisher. I am not trying to, basically execute innocent people who stood by while a violent crime was committed. That is not anything that I'm advocating for whatsoever. But at the same time, from your perspective on the exterior of the justice system, I can understand, basically exactly what you're saying. But at the same time, you understand that like we only prove 50% of homicides inside the United States, that oftentimes we get convictions against murderers, not on the basis of homicide, because rarely will we ever have witnesses who will corroborate a homicide or a murder, but we basically convict them of drug trafficking charges over and over and over again. This stems back to the war on drugs. We don't get murder convictions, we get drug convictions. And these bullshit non-violent drug offenses that involve trafficking with higher level amounts, oftentimes those are pinned on drug lieutenants and drug captains who you can't tie to homicides because they're so powerful within their community that nobody will ever snitch on them, and they will basically execute the people who do snitch on them. So while I am for the American justice system, I think it's probably the best system that exists. This concept that like people, like horrible people, murderers, rapists, all that kind of stuff, people who stand by and abide other crimes aren't walking around free right now. It's just not accurate. And that's my only point. I'm not defending Donald Trump. Fuck Donald Trump.
What does this have to do? Well,
I
Trump
really
had
have
a
to
bad
step in
take
real
on this. It doesn't prove racism.
I did want to throw this over to Joe. Joe wanted to say something earlier.
Yeah, sure.
I'll throw it over to you next, RGO, because you haven't talked yet.
Yeah, sure. Let's talk about crime for a second. So just so we're clear, under the First Step Act, 3,100 federal prison inmates are out and they're released. Unfortunately, a vast majority of those are white, mainly because the system that they implemented called Pattern, which is an algorithm that's used to determine the likelihood of recidivism, is fucking ridiculous. The point system is ridiculous. If you are under the age of 30, you are more than likely, and again, like I highly implore you to look into the pattern risk assessment tool, because this is where a vast majority of my argument about this bill comes from. If you don't understand that, this is going to be a very hard claim, very, very hard to go through this conversation constructively. But I will say this. Under the current pattern system, 7% of African Americans qualify at the minimum risk. So the minimum risk means that's the minimum requirement you have to be considered part of resentencing, to be sort of like early release, all this type of bullshit. Now, comparatively, white Americans in the federal system right now, 30%. So you have 30% versus 7%. So of the 3,100 inmates, and the vast majority of the people who have cocaine sentences that were resentenced, because again, something within the First Step Act made cocaine offenses retroactive, so you can apply for resentencing, stuff like that. A vast majority of them are white. Now, also, too, something that William Barr failed to fucking consider, but especially considering that he assumed this role very, how you would say, unnaturally, considering that this was supposed to be Jeff fucking Sessions' job, but because he recused himself, this prevented the actual report to have any type of like length, so William Barr didn't have enough time to write this out. He failed to just put any type of like, okay, what happens if COVID drops? Okay, if COVID drops, I should probably rewrite how the pattern algorithm works, and he didn't fucking do that. He did a revision in January 2020. As we know, January 2020 is a really weird time when we talk about COVID, but My main point is the pattern system is fucked up, and it disproportionately affects African Americans. It makes it so that they can't even do the system that Donald Trump claims is good for black people. And it's very frustrating. I really want that thing to change. And I don't think Donald Trump is going to have any type of additional legislation, not within the second STEP Act he's trying to propose within the Platinum Plan, or even just having William Barr within that position.
I would like to see your evidence from that. I mean, I'm not saying you're wrong, but I found evidence from 2019 that said the first year of the First Step Act, 91% of those released were black. So I would just like to see your numbers that say that the majority of people
91% of the people who were resentenced were African American, not released.
All right, let me see what the article says. It's from The Root. I don't know if that's a good
you can
site,
you can go to the Bureau of Prisons. They do a report every Saturday. They update report of the release pattern. There's also the for lack of a better term, the actual report that William Barr sourced, which is where I get the numbers for pattern. All this is already out there through the assessment tool report. So I'll give it up to William Barr that the information is out there for us to consume and understand, but we cannot sit here and act like this is good for African Americans, because it's not. The pattern algorithm is flawed.
Okay.
I think that's, I mean, perhaps the algorithm's flawed, but the fact that 91% of the people that benefited from the First Step Act were black, I don't think that you could put that as a knock on Donald Trump.
Resentencing.
But they still benefited, like getting a lower sentence.
These were retroactive.
Wait, before getting into this back and forth, I think Riley.
Yeah, I was trying to give it over to RGR, yes.
Yeah. We'll go back to that.
Well, yeah, I mean, I was interested in following up on the point from Counterpoints, just because, I mean, like, if you want to talk to someone else who's worked in law enforcement, I clerked for the Organized Crime Division of the Attorney General's Office for Maryland. So, I mean, I did specific work on police reform. You said that normally, according to your understanding, that most people that you encounter are not innocent, right? Is that the way that you and most police officers that you worked with predominantly usually look at the situations that you're in? I'm just curious.
No, and let me clarify. I'm not saying that most people aren't innocent. As a matter of fact, I would say even people who are in like high crime neighborhoods, the majority of them are normal, everyday folk who just work, do their jobs, do whatever, have families, do their own thing. When I say not innocent, I'm very specifically talking about basically I'm guilty of things. When I was younger, I was a teenager, I drunk drove. When I was in college and in high school, I smoked weed. I've been in fistfights. I've been, I've basically, I think I've shot guns in parks and basically like wildlife reserves where you're probably supposed to have a backstop and I didn't have it. Some of these are misdemeanors. Some of these are felonies. And basically, I've never been caught. I've never been convicted. I think I was put in handcuffs once, and it was for setting fireworks. So my point overall with that is not Donald Trump is good. The Central Park Five deserve to be in prison. They're actually guilty, and secretly we should line them up behind the jail and shoot them. That was none of my point. My point just being that basically just because somebody is not convicted, the system itself might deem that person innocent, but that actually has very little to do with their innocence. So while I think it's entirely possible that through DNA evidence, the Central Park Five are actually not guilty of gang rape or rape. It's entirely possible that they were present at the time of rape. It's entirely possible that they were, running around with the same teenagers who were beating the fuck out of people and basically, robbing them and throwing bricks and shit. And there's no DNA evidence or witness evidence that's going to be, especially at nighttime, that's going to be reliable enough in order to obtain a conviction. So while these people don't necessarily deserve to be buried under the jail for a rape that they didn't commit, that really has no material bearing on the conviction or the prosecution or anything like that. And then also just, you working in the organized crime division, how many people did you get for murder or for homicide? Like was it almost none?
Like here's the thing about it, right? Is that like statistically speaking, like I think that you're correct in the idea that like police officers, like generally speaking, don't actually catch like most of the people who are the perpetrators of crimes, right? Like I don't necessarily disagree with you on that point. I think it's just very dangerous to employ like this kind of mentality that like, oh, most of the people who we catch are actually like guilty. Most of the people who do it actually do it, because like these are the kind of things that lead to instances of like police misconduct, police excessive use of force, police brutality, right? And like this is the problem that we have with a lot of like BLM, right? Is that like, and I'm not sitting here saying that like every single instance of police brutality is like the consequence of like direct overt racism. I don't think that every single police officer who like accidentally uses police use of force or excessive force against a person of color is like specifically doing like, oh yeah, I really want to murder this black person. I think that there's like a lot of complicated situations, but I also think that like the fact that we have not taken steps to kind of address like that mentality, like that exact mentality of like thinking that like, oh, I know better than like the court system, which really is the best way of being able to determine like the innocence or the guilt of a person who is who we are wondering who we're trying to ascertain did a crime. Like, generally speaking, that's the safest thing that we could do, and we should really try. And yeah, I don't know. It just seems really weird that we aren't able to pass like meaningful police reform, actually addressing the fact that there are lots of people who are in these kind of positions who just assume the guilt of people who actually don't end up committing crimes.
And I want to address your point, and then I actually want to address something for Joe too. So I just want to use this as an example. There was a drug lieutenant in the city that I worked in, who basically everybody knew was responsible for shootings and stabbings. Everybody knew when somebody was shot, it was, hey, literally this guy walked up to this doorway and this person owed him money. And when the person came to the door, he shot him through the doorway. We know, like the streets know this. Everybody knows this. They're talking about it, all that kind of stuff. Can we get a witness? No. Does the victim want to cooperate because he's still alive? No. Do we want to corroborate anything, that's been going on? No. So basically this guy gets to walk around in his own city with impunity committing violence. And because police aren't present at the time of the violence, we're not convicting him. He's convicted repeatedly of basically lower level drug charge.
You cut out pretty hard.
I just don't know what any of this has to do with Trump Biden.
Yeah, I do think while this is an extremely okay. I forgot. I didn't clarify this earlier. When I'm trying to talk, we're trying to bring us back over to the topic. Nobody else talks when I'm talking. Forgot to say that earlier. I do want to bring this back over. It just was an extremely interesting conversation, and I was personally interested in it, so I kind of let it go on for a little bit. Okay.
I can summarize it into 2 sentences.
Okay, CTV, you can bring us back into it then.
Batman Begins, understand how the crime syndicate worked there and why they wanted to actually burn Gotham down to the ground, right? That's the last, 15 minutes. So
did my audio cut out and then shit fucking exploded?
Audio cut out, and we were bringing it back to Trump v. Biden now.
Okay, can I can I address something in 30 seconds and then I'll totally let everything drop?
Make it 15.
Okay. Joe Lewis, there's a bunch of material conditions that Black people do not have access to disproportionately that I think very likely contributes to the negative outcomes of the system that you're talking about. As a reformer, I am very much interested in addressing those issues. That way, basically, they're not disproportionately fucked over, and we can stop having conversations about, 1350 or crime stats or any of that kind of shit. I seriously think that there's a lot of things that we can do to fix the system. That way, Black people are not disproportionately fucked over.
That was a long ass 15 seconds. Okay, let's bring it back.
Sorry, brother.
All right. So if I may, something that Destiny talked about that I thought was not true, where he said that Bobulinski was proven wrong and even Tucker's dropped this story. That's not true at all. That's total fabrication. Bobulinski testified and he has emails to back it up and he has a confirmation that he says can be proved to show that he was at the Milken conference in 2017, that he did in fact personally meet with Joe Biden in discussing business arrangements. We know that there were financial transactions through the company CFC and Sinohawk, which had people.
Why didn't the Wall Street Journal report it?
I don't know, because the media is corrupt, and who cares?
Do you have anything beyond
whoa.
The Wall Street Journal had access to these things. Why didn't the Wall Street Journal report it? They said that there were no documents. But why do you believe Bobulinski over the Wall Street Journal?
No, they didn't say. They said there was no definitive proof from the documents. They didn't say it was dispositive. What they said, Kimberly Strassel on the editorial. Right. Well, we couldn't prove anything about the allegations of Trump Russia, yet we had a 4-year investigation that found out that all of those claims were untrue. Yet the media is colluding with the...
No, absolutely not.
Wait, just real quick. Is it seriously your contention here, Destiny, that if this was a business associate of Don Jr. making these accusations and having emails such as these about Don Sr., that the media would have a total blackout on?
Simple question. The Wall Street Journal had access to everything Bobulinski showed them. The Wall Street Journal decided not to report on it because they said that there was no provable link. Why do you believe Bobulinski, a guy that clearly has political motivations, why do you believe this guy over the entire Wall Street Journal or any other mainstream media that could have reported on this?
Because they want Biden to win.
Bobulinski personally pointed out that in his emails that we have seen through his interviews, for example, he said that the big guy that was 10% was being held for was Joe Biden. He personally provided emails that when Hunter Biden referred
Where are the documents?
He released emails. We have those.
No, and I don't want an email saying somebody has. Where's the document? If it's a business transaction, this is what the Wall Street Journal couldn't prove. Don't pivot. Where are the documents? If he has the documents showing that Biden was involved with the business, why hasn't he released them?
Because it was the entire documents in the story that's being alleged. I find it funny that the Biden camp's defense is, well, look at our tax returns. Of course, when you're laundering money, it doesn't show up on your tax returns.
No one was talking about that. Why are you pivoting? I'm asking
quick,
Bobulinski, why didn't Bobulinski release the documents showing transfers to Joe Biden?
The entire reason that first off, the documents show that people were going to hold the money for the big guy. So
but nothing happened.
Wait, Dan.
Or Jim
Hi,
Biden.
Aren't you rich?
Yeah.
If Biden
Yeah.
or Jim,
Is all your money in your checking account?
Huh?
Is like okay, so Destiny's kind of contention is that, like, you know, because we don't have documents showing financial transfers directly to Joe Biden, we seriously don't think that our politicians are capable of like laundering their money into like smart assets that maybe aren't as visible as other assets.
Well, I mean, there would still be documents for that. Like, you know, sure. It
Usually
all
use
go-
like shell companies or
Yeah,
use
I
some
mean,
kind of
yeah.
shady entity. Yeah, usually. Why was it not? You don't think the Wall Street Journal reporters wouldn't have known that? You think they were literally
Don't they want Biden to win?
if I may,
No, why would the Wall Street Journal was considered like center right leaning? What are you talking about?
Because nobody likes Trump.
Oh my God! The conspiracy? I can't say anything. Okay.
Can I?
because the Wall Street Journal was just reporting on the documents they had. Yes, Bobulinski admits that he first found it troubling when he started to put in good governance systems, that when he brought this to Jim Biden said that they needed plausible deniability. And the entire argument is Bobulinski was upset when he found out they went around him. He was trying to do things in a legal manner and thought that it was incredibly sketchy that Biden was willing to take money from the CCP, but it was fine.
It wasn't. That's not true.
Bobulinski
Can
said, have access.
jump in?
You can real quick. You can talk around. You can talk around like 50 million conspiracies about who said blah 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 blah. But the reality is that, and I know this because I know Trumples. If there was any evidence of this being true whatsoever, Fox News, the Wall Street Journals, and honest to God, even the New York Times and the Washington Post, although I know you don't believe it, but at the very least, Fox News and the Wall Street Journal would be screaming this from the rooftops. We would have evidence from documents showing transactions to entities that are linked to Joe Biden. Full stop. That would be it. We would have it, and we wouldn't be sitting here saying, "Well, he talked to one guy, and that guy said that they wanted plausible deniability, and then they went around the blah blah blah." Like, there's a reason why you have to obfuscate your message because you have no evidence, and that's why at the end of the day, the only pivot you have is, well, all of the media is corrupt against God Emperor Trump. That's it.
Okay, wait. I wanted to. RGR wanted to jump in like 10 minutes ago. Rob, I do want you to be able to respond to that, obviously, but I wanted to see what RGR had to say because I don't want her to lose whatever she was going to say earlier. Counterpoints, I saw you raising your hand, but you got to have made a comment earlier. RGR hasn't got to speak yet.
Yeah, I mean, I was just interested because, I mean, like, right now we're talking about a case which, in my job, I haven't looked into it as much as y'all, but it sounds like primarily what's available right now is hearsay, right? Like, that's kind of evidence that you're relying on. If this were to be presented in the court of law, like, this is a statement this is an out-of-court statement being used for the truth of the matter asserted, right? So what I just want to know, like, I'm really, just a couple of really quick questions, right? Like, I want to know if we're applying, like, the same kind of standard where we can rely on what would, in the court of law, be fundamentally inadmissible in, like, other instances. Like, are we fine with the idea? Like, how do you? I want to know how y'all feel about like the fact that he was an unindicted co-conspirator to the conspiracy that Michael Cohen was already pleaded guilty to. The fact that he offered the Ukrainian president $400 million worth of support from the Justice Department for investigating Biden. The fact that he punished whistleblowers who brought it to the public's attention by firing him. The fact that he was impeached. I mean, like, all of these things, right? Like, you are literally like trying to say like, oh, well, you know, we don't have that much evidence for, you know, this instance with Biden. But then, like, with all these other instances, I see people like doubling over backwards to say, oh, there's no way. Oh, there's no way.
Oh, I can explain that. That's fake news.
That's fake news.
There you go.
Yeah, I got you.
Okay, Rob, I want you to give you a period to respond to that, and then counter right after.
Yeah, I'll respond to all of that. So, for example, what we did have was, we had massive investigations into Trump for all those things, didn't we? We had massive media attention being paid to all those things. So, for example, we know that the FBI had errors or omissions 17 times that used a Russian spy's disinformation, someone that they investigated as a Russian spy in 2009. Over 17 times, they knew that evidence was paid for by Hillary Clinton's team. They knew that it came from a Russian spy, and they used that to spy on Donald Trump's campaign and people connected to his campaign without ever verifying it. So why in using, and I assume that all of you were good with the Mueller investigation and good with the FBI investigation. So if that unverified information paid for by Hillary Clinton, disseminated by a Russian spy, was good enough to have a 4-year investigation into Donald Trump and to have the media cover the story 24/7 for 4 years, why is the media refusing to cover a story with far more credibility, far more direct evidence, and a far more visible and transparent whistleblower than that situation?
Because there
I
is
can
no
respond.
evidence, and that's why anytime I ask you, where are the documents, you don't see it. If you think there's evidence, why not bring him in front of a jury and have him testify under oath? For instance, like Sondland did, our EU ambassador, the guy that was a centerpiece in proving that a quid pro quo had existed, that Trump was impeached for when he was threatening to withhold aid from Ukraine in response to them trying to investigate Biden. Like, that's a guy that testified under threat of perjury, so why not get Bobulinski to do it?
That was an alleged quid pro quo, which was never proven. But we have a confirmed quid pro quo that was offered by Joe Biden that fired the prosecutor that was looking into the company that was paying him $83,000 a month.
Trump's fired like multiple prosecutors for looking into people who are related to him. What about that? Do you not care about that?
The FBI director, he literally got rid of him for heading that investigation.
Guys.
Yeah. So the allegation is that Trump
I'll
must be
let
bad.
Rob finish, and then I'll throw it to you. Counter, promise.
Thanks.
Trump must be bad because he did an alleged quid pro quo that was never proved to look into the corruption of Biden. But Biden using a confirmed quid pro quo to fire a prosecutor that was looking into the company that was paying his son $83,000 a month, that was perfectly legitimate.
That wasn't even the same company. This wasn't even the same company. And this guy was being called for by both sides of the U.S. government, Republicans and Democrats, and the UN. This guy was, or the EU.
That's
Okay.
irrelevant.
Okay,
It's
I gotta.
irrelevant.
Okay, I got counter.
Sorry, I'm not.
No,
Okay.
doesn't he finish a point and throw it straight to counter? Promise. Okay.
No, I was saying, it's not like Biden was on his own and calling for this guy. Like, both halves of our Congress, like Republicans and Democrats, were against this guy. The EU knew this guy was corrupt, and this guy was in charge of prosecuting in a time when Hunter wasn't even working in the same country. These don't line up at all. This is just totally not connected in any way, size, shape, or form.
Okay.
Republicans and
Counter.
Democrats both called the firing of Comey. I didn't see you say there shouldn't be an investigation into that.
Okay. Counter. Go. Hemp in, please.
Yeah. Okay. So, all right, this is seriously, like, I could sing you guys the South Park song, fucking, it's your right to choose between a douche and a turd for like the next 3 minutes, but I'm not going to do that. So here's my point, because Destiny, this was actually our first conversation that we ever had. I love you, buddy. So the first conversation we ever had was about political corruption and basically money in politics. So the question is, Hunter Biden basically on his daddy's name was able to go work for a Ukrainian gas company despite having very little experience inside the energy sector, was paid roughly $83,000 a month. And, should that be legal? One more thing. Then, Clinton Foundation, Chelsea Clinton was like the, obviously the daughter of Bill and Hillary, where, she was one of the chief runners of the charity, the Clinton Foundation, which was basically, in my estimation, a money laundering scheme for the Clintons while Hillary Clinton was the Secretary of State. The question is not whether or not any of this shit is legal, because clearly it's legal. These people are smart as fuck. They have lawyers. They have, basically people who, basically suck their dicks in order to keep them out of jail and all that kind of bullshit. My question is whether or not this shit should be legal. Should our politicians be taking tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of dollars from foreign companies and then basically laundering it into their personal wealth? And the answer is absolutely fucking not.
If you think that that's not true, then man, you must fucking hate Trump when people that he was associated with, like Paul Manafort, were literally federally indicted, not only for taking that money, but for failing to disclose it, something that Hunter Biden hasn't been accused of. The fact that these people will get into positions of government and then work with foreign companies or whatever isn't really that surprising. It's going to be in the purview of what they do. What do you expect to happen when you worked in government? You're going to go and get a job at Jiffy Lube afterwards? You're probably going to be involved in these types of things. And the fact of the matter is, no crime is taking place here, and nothing immoral or horrible is taking place here. His dad was the vice president. It makes sense if he's going to have the connections to go out and do things afterwards. I'd be far more concerned with sitting leaders that are putting like their son-in-laws or other members of their family in key positions of power that are running a lot of the parts of the U.S. government that they probably don't have any business to do, while having foreign debt that can be leveraged over them at any point in time. Like the fact that I even have to consider, like, well, he was getting paid $83,000, blah, 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 blah. If I was even going to consider that wrong, in any universe where I would consider that wrong, Trump has committed 3 orders of magnitude worse crimes in terms of having conflict of interest or foreign interest that could be levied over him.
That's an absurd claim, because Trump got his, as an international businessman, Trump got his wealth well before any time that he was involved in politics. The Biden family traded on their name after they were involved in politics. For example, we know $2.5 million was given to Hunter Biden from the mayor of Moscow's wife. My point is quite simply, and I'll just make this real quick. It is true.
Dylan, I need to interject here. We're going to spend this entire show talking about a conspiracy theory. Is that what you want? Is that really the dividing factor between Joe Biden and Donald Trump?
Well, Harkdan, the other option is your terrible meme, so whatever. Okay, everybody shut up. Okay, everybody shut up. Everybody shut up. Everybody, Destiny. Don't do that, please. Okay. Rob, finish your point. Destiny, you go on. Harkdan, while annoying, made a decent point. His hat was somewhat charming. Okay, look, we'll continue into another part of this after this. I think this is taking enough up this point. So I want to kind of move over to maybe some policy and stuff like that off of this specifically, and then move on to the Trump section. So, Rob, you may respond. Destiny, then you'll get a period of time to talk after. Then we'll finish it off. Okay, Rob.
I'll be real quick. Look, we know that Hunter Biden got money from people that we consider adversarial, like the corrupt board of Burisma. We know they got them from China. It's alleged that he got it from Moscow Mayor as well. We know that there are allegedly sex tapes out there. I personally don't care about them, but people on the left were furious that there could be sex tapes of Donald Trump that could be used as compromise. But all of a sudden, they're not even covering this story when we could see the actual tapes of Hunter Biden. My point is quite simple. Not only does this show corruption, but on a bigger scale, a vote for Joe Biden is a vote for the establishment, the mainstream media that covered any insipid allegation about Donald Trump or Brett Kavanaugh, even if there was no evidence for it, talked about it, foamed at the mouth, went about the importance of it nonstop, but they refused to even touch this story with a whistleblower, with evidence that backs it up, that at the very least shows, even if you don't think Joe Biden's involved, it shows that his son was involved in business relationships with adversarial nations, and somehow they don't care about it. This means if Joe Biden gets elected and we have another disastrous war, like, I don't know, the war in Iraq or something, this is what you have to look forward to as progressives. The entire mainstream media and tech companies censoring you and not allowing you to be critical of Joe Biden because they're 100% in the bag with him. This is state-ran media and propaganda and needs to be rejected in the strongest possible terms.
Destiny, you can respond.
I would never vote for Trump. We have video footage of him murdering 25 people in the street. We've got video footage of him abusing dogs and animals. It's horrible. We've seen the Chinese paid him over $250 billion in order to say the N-word 50 million times on network TV. And I've seen all of these things with my own two eyes. UPS lost it in the mail, unfortunately, so I can't show you the evidence right now, but that's why I'm not voting for Trump. And I'm definitely not. And I'm definitely not voting. And I'm definitely okay. And I'm definitely not voting for Hunter Biden.
Okay. So you stole my meme, but okay, let's go on. Now, we don't have too much time left in the Joe Biden segment, so I know there's a few people in here who haven't been able to talk much in the last period of time. Those people would be Harkdan, CTV, Turk, and Joe. I would say Joe. So all those people, if do any of you have anything you want to add on the issue of policy before I open it up for everybody else?
I do. Mine's very, very quick. I think it's very disingenuous that Republicans act like Joe Biden didn't do shit in his 47 years in office. Look, how are you going to deny that we have fucking Harriet Tubman Day, for God's sakes? Any motherfucking millennial in the 90s who grew up doing any type of social studies know of Harriet Tubman Day. Joe Biden introduced that to fucking Congress. Now, that's one very small thing, right? We can go a little bit deeper, right? We can go to Recidivism Reduction and Second Chance Act of 2007. We can go to the Trafficking Victims Protection Authorization Act of 2008, which essentially combated trafficking of persons and other children across the world. We can talk about how he advocated for Eastern Bloc countries to join NATO after the collapse of the Soviet Union. We can talk the fact that he blocked Jeff Sessions from the federal district court. Oddly enough, he ends up appearing in a different type of administration a couple decades later. He helped the rejection of William Bork. It is crazy to me how you act like he didn't do shit, but he blocked William fucking Bork, who is like fucking, what the fuck is that woman who got elected? It's like that woman on steroids. This dude is a fucking originalist, a open racist, and I'm so glad that motherfucker isn't on the Supreme Court. Joe Biden is responsible for that, and on top of that, he oversaw RBG. All you white fucking liberals who are crying about her death, well, Joe Biden's fucking responsible for that shit. So it's like, at the end of the day, you can't sit here and act like he hasn't done shit. That's fucking ridiculous.
Clarify Joe's point. He means responsible for getting appointed, not her death. He's not saying that. Okay. Yes. Is there anybody
amped up on Red Bull?
Okay. Is there anybody else who hasn't talked that much and want to say something quick before we open up to everybody else?
Yeah.
Dan, sure.
Man, it saddens me greatly that so much of this segment has been spent on like a conspiracy theory. No shit. If your last name is fucking Obama or Biden, you're gonna make money and people are gonna do shit like that. Yes, obviously, I'm sure. But look at Trump. Look at the fucking Trump kids. Look at fucking Ivanka. This is a person who's not qualified to do fucking anything. She's all over this shit. Like, I don't understand, like, the insistence of corruption here. Like, every single person who's worked with Trump ever has been fired. There's like 2 dudes left from the original creation of the Trump empire. Never mind that.
Dan,
let's talk about helping poor people or people in the middle class, right? Look at the tax cuts that Trump did. It only goes to help rich people. You can't defend it. like to an insane level. Like if you look at the tax cuts and where it went to people, it went to none of you. How do you defend that? How is that good for you? Do you guys all believe in trickle down economics or something? Because I know I sure as shit ain't paying people more money as a result of that. Fuck no, I'm saving up for a McLaren or something. Like that's how it works. It's just so much of this is crazy. And all these policies, I'll give you this. Politicians, for the most part, they really don't get shit done across the board. The thing that you can just rest on is just climate change. You know, the best part is climate change now is so strong that I just love asking people who are obsessed with Trump if it's real. And then they say no. And then you know that they're a fucking moron and you can just disregard everything they say. So that's the thing I really like to do here the most. Ask these guys if climate change is real. They're going to be like, well, you know, China did a lot of it. And that's why we left the Paris Accord. We weren't doing a lot. So let's just do that. Let's just go there. And the fact that literally Trump is making it so my kids won't have a fucking planet in the future. And then we can hear all these guys saying how it's not real. And then you just know to disregard everything they're saying because they're lunatics. They don't listen to scientists and instead listen to fucking Republicans from Kentucky.
How real is climate change? Can you provide me some links to source and stuff?
Well, I can provide you some, you know, we have a few Republican senators
you're so
who,
smart and you've got lots of
I have
money,
a few Republican senators who say it's not real, and I have like 7
I want
scientists
you
total.
to send the information.
You want me to send you information
I want
that
you to
climate
send the
science is
information.
real?
You're claiming
Do you think there's a
that
cabal
we,
of
the
fucking scientists
Republicans-
out there, and they're like all Democrats trying to like fuck over everything?
No,
Just
I
send
want
them
to
the
see
NASA. Send them the NASA picture.
I want to see the information that you're citing, and I want to see it.
It's like debating flat earthers. You guys think the Earth is round, right?
Do we have a channel in
it's- I mean, I think that correct me if I'm wrong, TheTerk, what you're saying is like, what is the significance of climate? Okay, I agree climate change is changing. The question is how fast, what are the impacts of it? What are the solutions that will work? Do we have enough time for those? I mean, we've been told by some people that we only had 18 months to be able to implement policies or else we would all be doomed. Those 18 months have passed. So are we all doomed now? Is there nothing we could do? We've also been told by other measures that there's so much pollution or so much greenhouse
Can you
gases
provide
going
me
in.
evidence that the Earth is round? I'm not even fucking with you right here. I want you to do it. And me and Destiny, we actually believe the Earth is flat. And I'm not fucking with you when I say it. Provide me real. You think I'm fucking with you because it seems so ludicrous to you. Unironically, provide me evidence that the Earth is round.
I only have
I think
CGI.
it's
Don't
evident
look.
that you and
Look.
Destiny
I
totally
don't
think
look.
you're nuts.
As much as I
Stephen, help
respect,
me out
look,
here. I know you're more well-versed in this than I am.
I respect the meme. I respect the meme,
No, it's
but
not
also
really a
I
meme.
don't.
It's about his bullshit.
I understand.
Just in case
But I
you
do
wanna
not.
see it.
I do not want to spend the next 10 minutes of people sending evidence of whether the Earth is flat or round right now. Okay, so I understand the point you're trying to make, but can we bring it back home quick and not actually have that happen?
Okay, they're bringing it back home is we
I
have to
get what you're
trust the vast majority of scientists, not politicians, when it comes to this stuff. Absolutely.
So
And
I'll
also
counter
additionally-
this, and I'll say that
yeah,
there
please
is
as well.
considerable evidence out there that also cites that this catastrophic climate change that's being claimed is not as bad as it seems. I actually posted the link to the information in the chat. You're free to read it. It's the YaleClimateConnections.org. They're saying that the climate sensitivity is not as extreme as was predicted by the IFCC or the ILCC, whatever the climate change organization is. So it's not settled science. I talked to the dairy a lot about this offline, and I've done a lot of research about it. And it's, you guys keep pushing this agenda, and not
Who's
all
you guys?
scientists.
Like
you
you
guys,
do?
the left,
For
are
what?
green
Who's
plan.
Okay, so
behind this?
something. Hang on.
The
So
Green
something I'm
Deal.
kind of like confused about, right? So why the fuck would Governor Murphy sign the strongest measure to protect overburdened communities from pollutants if climate change isn't this real fucking deal? This thing is in law. It's the strictest bill in the fucking books. And when you guys are like, when Joe Biden goes into office, don't be fucking surprised if fucking either whether it be Governor Murphy or fucking Cory Booker has some type of position in environmental justice, because they passed that shit. And they didn't pass that shit. Let me phrase this. They passed this shit because, one, climate change is fucking real and incredibly dangerous. Number two, it disproportionately fucks minorities. So I don't understand why there's this sort of fight about climate change, which is why I'm voting for Joe Biden, because I know within my state, I called Cory Booker a fucking coward, and he would never pass environmental legislation that would help any of my fucking communities that are fucking dying because of the water that they drink in Newark or just the water that they drink in Trenton. But then I have to go sit there on a fucking middle of the day in September, seeing fucking Phil Murphy and Cory Booker smiling, giving me a giant middle finger. Hey, we passed this fucking thing, and it's directly tied to the census that we know not historically, but over the past couple of years, as leading up to the census, we found that there's a little bit of resistance on one side of the aisle when it comes to census checking. But hey, On the bright side, New Jersey has the strongest measure to protect overburdened communities of pollutants, and that is great. But I'm very sure that I would trust that Cory Booker or Governor Murphy could push that within a Biden administration more than a Trump administration.
I mean, I think
Okay.
that what Dan did here is emblematic of the problems I see in the establishment with the Democratic Party. First, he says, can we please do what the mainstream media did and stop talking about a story that's critical of Joe Biden? Yeah, we got you. The media is following you. Meanwhile, you probably parroted every single conspiracy theory about Donald Trump as if it was a big deal with Russia collusion that all turned out to be fake and baked on Russian disinformation. Then you say, anyone who wants to have a nuanced discussion about climate change, sure, it's real, but how significant is it? Here's credible scientists that say maybe it's not as bad as others are saying. You say, oh, that's like endorsing flat earth. This is what we see from so many people on the left. You're unwilling to have a fair and honest conversation. And instead you must gatekeep and say anyone who wants to talk about the nuances or talk about the specifics of this is some horrible person, and then yell the F word a bunch of times. It's a little better than Destiny's strategy of making up things about Trump shooting 25 people because he's losing the argument, but not much.
Oh, well, I mean, I'm not sure how I can respond to the fact that Democrats are making shit up. I mean, you got me there. We are known for our fake news. That's kind of our status quo.
I do have video
media
evidence.
empire.
Just saying.
Yeah,
I have the video of
Looking
that.
at the
I
evidence,
do
I'm
want to
looking
throw it
at
over to
the
RGR.
evidence.
RGR hasn't spoken.
We
in a
actually
while.
we get together on Friday on
Yeah.
Discords and discuss how we're going to hold down Republicans. I'd invite you, but I don't know if you have the right stuff to get in. We'll see.
Hey,
You
I'd
gotta
make
add me to that
jokes
group
too
chat,
if I was
okay?
getting blown out of the water. So,
RGR, it's your turn.
good job.
Wait, do you want to bet on the election? Sorry,
Okay,
I'm
RGR, please.
sorry.
That's not what I'm saying.
So you don't want to bet on the.
I actually,
on the
No,
listen,
let-
like,
RGR, please.
I do want to have an honest discussion. So I'm looking at the article that you sent me. So can you please point me to where in the model that it says that the consensus is not that there's global warming? Like it says so far that what I see that there are different models and different models are saying that there's like different degrees of global warming. But what I'm seeing so far seems to say that they all have the consensus that there is global warming, just to different extents. So can you like point to me? Yeah. So like I'll walk through it with you. Like
Yeah,
I'm
and I
looking
can
at it with my screen.
explain it. So there
Yeah.
is consensus, and a lot of people actually agree that climate change is happening. And like Normal America was saying, it's the extent, the policies that go towards combating it, and then how severe it actually is. The link that I sent is actually showing that as people are modifying their models, they're seeing that the actual climate sensitivity, meaning as we double CO2, the impacts of climate change do X, Y, and Z. If you scroll down towards, I think it's the middle, there's a chart using the IPCC AR5 range, CMIP models, and the CMIIP models. As they're changing the models to do things, the variance in the degree of the climate sensitivity is increasing. Thus, it is not settled science. And I'm really tired of people saying that since I'm a Trump supporter, I'm a very ignorant and not smart person. That's
It
not
seems like
true.
there's settled science that it is increasing. It's just the question is to what degree, right? Like
and
if the
how
consequence is like,
significant it is.
all right, well, if the
That's-
consequence
that's
is that we
the thing.
still need policy to to respond to it, then I don't really see how this is a material difference.
And that's a good debate because it could be, we need to get rid of all of our fossil fuels by the year 2050, a la the Biden plan, or we could start to shift our resources towards natural gas, which is a much more clean, efficient fuel, or start increasing our reliance on nuclear energy. There's plenty of solutions that could
Well, they're not going
address
to.
climate
Because Trump
change.
said
Are we
climate
talking-
change is a liberal hoax.
Yeah,
Oh my
like,
God,
are we
I
talking
fucking
about,
hate it.
are we talking
Dylan,
about
I
the
fucking
Tommy
hate it.
you're
Holy
being Trump
shit.
who doesn't believe in science
Yeah.
at all? Like, I mean, like,
What-
I understand that this might be
One
like the
second.
best, like, good faith argument that you could make, but like, Trump is like leagues away from this. Like, he's gone on the record to say that he just doesn't believe that science doesn't have this shit figured
So
out,
we
right?
should just say by the year 2050, we're just going to be rid of all
It's better to
burning
have
fossil
like
fuels.
it's better to have some plan than literally no plan at all.
It's
Like,
better
he's
to have
literally
honest
pretending.
discussions with people and using accurate data instead of
We
going
know
all the way
it's
off to
happening.
the extremes.
Okay, so
We
They-
know
they-
it's happening right now.
okay, so Counter wanted to say something for a second, so I'll throw it
Please.
to him.
All right.
Please, for the love of fucking God. Okay, so just specifically in reference to climate change, obviously Biden will be fucking way better, as far as like actually implementing government controls in order to assist people, investing in renewables, blah, blah, fucking blah. But I do have friends who already work in the fucking energy industry, natural gas in particular, and basically the energy industry is already projecting and looking out 30 fucking years, and they basically see that renewables, I forget what you fucking call it, but it's basically like I don't want to say like a perpetual motion machine, but it's basically like a hydroelectric dam or some shit that like relies on momentum and the river whatever to build something that basically like can help out. But what you need in order to like create like an actual electric grid that works for the United States of America is you need to have a baseline of power, which is basically either nukes, fission, or fusion, and then you also need renewables in order to do that. And even if we do nukes and then renewables in order to support the uptimes and the downtimes, you're probably still going to be reliant on that petroleum and natural gas and all that kind of stuff in order to fill in the gaps. In addition, you're probably still going to need gasoline for vehicles, because the same way that vehicles are basically reliant on rare earth minerals in order to be produced, you have to mine those things. So maybe in 50 years, instead of fighting wars in the Middle East for oil, we'll be fighting wars in Central Asia for rare earth minerals. So my problem, I am more left of center than I am than my stated politics. But at the same time, guns, abortion, immigration make me right. And then one of the main reasons why I always go after leftists and liberals is because they always think they're so much fucking smarter than they really are. And there are smart people on the right, and they do have good arguments. And there are steelmen to the positions that you constantly shit on. So while, Dan, I appreciate the fact that you're a rich motherfucker, probably richer than I can ever imagine, I really wish that there was a certain anarcho-communist here. That way he could take you down a peg as well.
If you mean Vosh, I've debated with him before. I'm not sure what that's.
I kind of want to take.
Rob, it's not a fact that uneducated
probably
white men
head on a
without
pike.
college degrees and without high school diplomas almost entirely vote for Trump. So if you want to talk about what his base is,
the reason it's funny because when we talk about how bad the polls were in 2016, one of the reasons why they were so off is because pollsters underestimated severely how fucking stupid the average Trump voter was. Education ended up being such a master predictor for the election that a lot of the pollsters missed. It was one of the largest missed things that actually happened on the first.
And it's spoken Tower. Education does not impart intelligence.
Okay, everybody, give me a moment. Rob, give me a second. We have to pass this around to 3 people because we're gonna have to wrap this topic up. We're going to start that with Rob, then Joe, and then CTV. You have barely talked this segment, so I wanted to make sure you got a piece of time to talk before we did closing statements. Or if you just wanted to wait to close statements, you can do that too. Since I'm kind of putting this on you right now. Rob, you can start.
Yeah, I just think that arrogance from Destiny is just so telling. I wonder if he would also talk about people that are stupid in communities that traditionally don't have education opportunities, like Hispanic or Black communities. Going to talk about how dumb they are as well, or is it just Trump supporters that you reserve that for? Now, on to the question of climate change.
You want? Yeah.
Sure, go ahead. Let's hear you talk about how stupid people in the Black community are. Go ahead.
If any of them come out opposed to vaccines, opposed to climate change, opposed to wearing masks, opposed to other basic settled science, I would say the exact same thing.
So
that's
how do you feel
shirking
about
from the
Kamala
argument
Harris
you originally
not wanting
made.
to
You
trust
said
the
that
Trump
intelligence was
vaccines?
tied to educational opportunities. So now you're changing that. So I get it. I know why you would do that. Now, specifically on climate change.
I'm sorry that I own the position. I'm sorry that made you uncomfortable. But yeah, anybody that opposes basic settled science, if a Black person or a Hispanic person said, I don't want to vaccinate my kids, I don't want to wear a mask, I'd call them an uneducated dipshit.
Drag them.
So
I would say I'm a
Destiny-
Trump supporter, and I seem to be quite intelligent compared to you, at least. So I don't know what you're referencing there. But anyways, when we talk about when we talk specifically,
can we? Okay. I said we're gonna wrap this up. So Rob,
if
for the
I
rest
could
of your
just real
statement,
quick
yes, please finish, but do not address anybody else, so I can move it to the next person afterwards.
Sure. So with climate change, I agree with what Counterpoints is saying here. And here's the issue. The reason that the severity of climate change is important to look at is because we don't want to adopt the most radical possible policies, such as the Green New Deal, that would cost hundreds of trillions of dollars. In that bill, specifically the one that AOC has put forward, she calls for the retrofitting of every single building in the United States of America to adapt renewables. So not only do we have to create the renewables, we have to retrofit every single business. She also calls in there for guaranteeing everyone a job and continuing an income for people that choose not to work. That was what the original bill said. It would be impossible to achieve these goals, but it's all being done in the name of we're all going to die from climate change. Instead, we need to have a sober conversation. For example, did you know that emissions have gone down during the Trump administration and we're actually meeting the obligations that we would have had under the Paris Climate Accord? Meanwhile, countries like China, India, and other countries that are more net polluters are yet to meet their obligations and don't have to start meeting them until the late 2020s. So this argument that it's just
he also solves school shootings too. There's been none of those in 2020 at all, dude.
We gotta keep going, please. Okay, right, next person, next interruption will be muted. No, Rob,
just to
can you please finish, please, quickly, very quickly.
15 seconds. The truth is that we see innovations that are coming, such as nuclear, other renewables that are coming, and they're not being forced on us, which means it's the best possible solution, and we're not destroying the economy to do so.
Hey, Joe, you're next.
Yeah, I just think I'm going to talk about the crime. Again, we're going to talk about this a lot in probably the next segment. But something that really confuses me is that mainstream conservatives and the GOP at large really want to harp down Joe Biden's throat about the crime bill when all you guys need to do is go back 4 fucking years to the Crime Control Act of 1990. That and I'm going to just list it off here. It had the Victims' Rights and Restitution Act. It had the Victims' Child Abuse Act, the National Law Enforcement Cooperation Act, National Child Search Assistance Act, Gun-Free School Zones Act, Mandatory Detention of Offenders Convicted of a Serious Crime Act, Financial Institutions Anti-Fraud Enforcement Act, Federal Debt Collection Procedure Act, Criminal Victims Protection Act. My point here is you guys want to harp so hard about Joe Biden and the crime bill when his only job of that was to just make it Senate digestible. And even with the Senate digestible, because O.J. Simpson decided to murder his fucking wife, allegedly, we have the Violence Against Women Act of 1994. So while it's very easy to dunk on the crime bill, you have a clear dunk and you only have to go back 4 years. But unfortunately, I would love to have a conversation of shitting on Joe Biden for the Crime Control Act of 1990. But conservatives have this giant fucking boner about the crime bill of 1994. And if you want to say you're for black people, you got to be encompassing of all the problems that we have. I've been shouting to the hills about this fucking Crime Control Act down Cory Booker's throat, down Governor Murphy's throat, and they are at least perceptive of the idea of, hey, we should probably fix these fucking bullshit crime laws. And then fucking Donald Trump shoves another one in there. So I don't really trust that Donald Trump is going to be the lone saver of criminal justice reform when even when the Platinum Plan, when every single person who writes a single law understands you don't put the word black in any real legislation because you're not going to get conservatives to agree on it. You're not going to get liberals to agree on it. You're not going to get anyone on the left to agree on it. Just fucking remove black. But then he's like, the Platinum Plan is going to help black people. You really think that's going to cater to your base, son? And also, like, oh, God, there's more to it, but yeah.
Okay. CTV, did you just want to wait to your ending segment, or do you want to say something now?
I think really that was the perfect time for me to come in. Because nobody really has touched on the war on drugs. And since Joe's going to continue to, show all the good things that Biden has done along the way since then, I want to make sure we get to the root of the problem. And while Biden was not a senator in 1970, one of his closest friends was, right? And the Controlled Substance Act was passed in a vote of 54-0 because nobody else showed up besides these 54 guys, right, to pass the Controlled Substance Act. And what have we seen from the Controlled Substance Act, right? We don't really need to get into what Nixon's people said when they said that we were going to we had the ability to be able to go inside these communities and disrupt them and lock up these people and be able to have all these powers over them, right? They did that knowing that they were going to be able to screw with black people, knowing they were going to be able to screw with Hispanic people, and they continued to do it year after year after year, and they're still fucking doing it now. We got riots in the streets, right? So to me, it seems insanely disingenuous for you to say, oh, well, he's done this for us and he's done this for us, but it's all of a result of what he and his ideology would have him do, which is put the Controlled Substance Act into place, which allowed all these communities to be marginalized. So to me, it's all fucking nuts.
Well, it is all. It's very nuts. I agree with you, CTV. Well, and also too, like
Joe,
when you look at
Joe, would you be fine with? Well, you'll have a 1 minute period during the ending if you want to respond to that directly.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah,
wonderful. Usually it's 1 to 3 minutes, but we're gonna actually have a hard barrier on this one. You get 1 minute if you go over at all. For anybody on here, we're gonna cut you off right there. So try to be careful with your time. We're gonna throw that out for everybody. RGR, you're gonna start us off, and I'm gonna actually. Chat is bullying me so much. I gotta go cry in the bathroom, so I gotta step away for a second. So Mr. Geek, my co-moderator, is going to take over for a second, okay? Wonderful. Mr. Geek, you'll guide them around after RGR gets her 1 minute. Please be strict with the time limit.
I'll try to be brief. So there's like two things I want to talk about, right? First, climate change. So really, I don't think that we've heard any evidence that there's no climate change. The only compelling evidence I've heard is that it might not be to the worst degree that we actually expected it to be. But in either situation, it's better to have some plan than not. And I'm not going to trust a president who literally just denies science and doesn't believe that climate change is happening at all, right? That's clearly bad. And even if you want to say that the Green New Deal is too extreme, it's better to have someone who's actually going to do something or try to do something than not do anything at all. Secondly, when we're talking about like conspiracy theories, right, we have to consider what in the law we would call like matters of weight and admissibility, right? If you have a conspiracy theory, and usually conspiracy theories are conspiracy theories because they have very little weight or very little evidence that goes a little weight, or it would be evidence that would like be blatantly inadmissible in trial because it's not inherently trustworthy. Hearsay is categorically inadmissible except for under certain circumstances, and even then, the weight of them is going to be extremely small. So I'm going to trust like instances where we are able to have a much higher degree of weight, especially like when you have, for example, an investigation conducted by the FBI into the actions or into the relations that a president has with other people and how that may have affected an election or how that may have affected his presidency, compared to something which has only a couple hearsay examples to be able to go off of. One of them has much more weight, and that is what I think makes it more credible logically. Thank you.
All right. TheTerk.
Yeah, so one thing before I really close is I would really suggest people to actually go and read the words of the actual ad that Trump put out back in the 80s regarding the Central Park 5. It's as relevant today as it was back when he posted it. But why I don't think Trump would be a good candidate and why you shouldn't vote for him. The Joe Biden tax plan is not a good thing for our country. Taxfoundation.org. About 1.9% decline in after-tax income for all taxpayers on average. The GDP will go down by 1.62%. Capital stock will go down 3.75%, and full-time equivalent jobs are expected to go down 542,000. Couple that with the the gun control legislation that he's advocating for, and several of the other underlying Democratic leadership issues that I'm not in favor of. I don't think he's a good candidate, and I don't think having the Democratic Party in the leadership of our nation is a good idea.
All right. Joe Louis.
Yeah. So, again, like to circle back to my pillars as to why I'm voting for Joe Biden. I think Joe Biden is the best candidate to protect and preserve all forms of civic engagement, and he's going to preserve the black vote. But something that's going to be a segue into the next conversation. I trust that Joe Biden's going to have an established cabinet within the 2 years of his of being a president. Because one of my biggest frustrations with Donald Trump, and we'll get to this later in my other statements, is that I am more concerned about who's going to be within Joe Biden's cabinet, because that I think is a much more interesting conversation. Now, I trust that Joe Biden, considering that he does have flaws in a lot of areas, like prison reform, as CTV alluded to, as climate, as kind of is alluded to in terms of transparency and clarity, I expect him to have better people, basically the leftist assassins of these topics within his cabinet. And we see this is why people are getting all bugged out by Bernie Sanders isn't going to be the senator of Vermont anymore. What's he going to do? That's because he's probably going to end up in that cabinet, because Joe Biden is just keeping an eye like, okay, who are the players here? And I trust the players behind Joe Biden than I ever would trust the players behind Donald Trump. He's playing this crappy ass starter deck, and Joe Biden is at least going to the secondary market, buying singles and making sure that deck is actually competitive for the market.
Hey, I'm back, so I'll re-guide the conversation. Rob, have you gone yet?
No, I have not.
Rob, you're next.
All right, thank you. So I think it's funny that Riley was talking about conspiracy theories. I wonder if she spoke up about the conspiracy theories about Trump. She talks about hearsay and things like that. Again, the FBI admitted to using unverified Russian spy source disinformation to spy on the Trump campaign. I didn't remember hearing all the cries from the left why that was terrible. Look, the truth is this evidence about Trump or about Biden in China is real. It's at least evidence to warrant an investigation. There have been claims that there is an active investigation into Hunter Biden for money laundering. The fact that the media isn't covering this proves that what you get with the Biden candidacy is the deep state candidacy. They're going to control the flow of information. They will operate for the military industrial complex. They will be against pulling troops out. They will be for more foreign wars. They will be for lying and censoring to the American people. We talked about taxes. It's a lie. The Trump tax plan actually, according to MarketWatch, it dropped taxes for like 12%, even from the poorest Americans, 25,000 and under, and it dropped for all Americans. We talk about climate change and things like that. It's true that Biden will push radical things like the Green New Deal that are unnecessary, that will cost trillions of dollars and cost jobs. They will lock down our rights over the environment, which will be terrible. He will do things like pack the court and other things because they can't win a fair game. And they'll do this in the name of trying to get power, censor anyone that disagrees with them, and have a perpetual deep state that will be able to control everything that we vote for. Real progressives like Joe Louis, who I respect, will not have a voice, because instead of people like Bernie Sanders, you'll have people like Hillary Clinton running the scene.
Okay, I'm going to throw it now over to counterpoints.
I haven't gone either. Just go ahead.
Yeah, so since we have a whole bunch of viewers tonight, I'm going to go ahead and shout out my YouTube channel, Counterpoint. So go ahead and look me up. And then just in reference to RGR and Destiny, you're both thinking like lawyers. So hearsay evidence, we know that basically like, thinking like a lawyer, that's fine. I'm not hating on you for it. But basically, there is shady shit going on. Hunter Biden, I've seen his dick. He, basically fucked a bunch of prostitutes. He's basically passed out with a crack pipe. Any other year except for 2020, that would be, or excuse me, meth pipe. I don't want to spread fake news. So any other year, that would be a big story. And now it's a nothing burger because everybody hates Trump so fucking much. So also, just to address this really quickly, the fact that you're okay with our politicians taking money from shiesty sources kind of fucking bugs me. And then Rob, you don't have to shine two turds. You can just admit that your turd tastes better. Part of the reason why Destiny is going after you is because basically, a lot of the things that Hunter and the Bidens do is shady as fuck. Trump has done some shady shit. I think we can all admit that. Dan, you're a dick, but I think you have really good memes. And then Rob, Destiny is many things, including an asshole, but he's not dumb. So just be careful.
I didn't say that.
Can I go next?
You know what? It was next was Dan, but sure, Destiny. Why not?
Fuck Dan. Any year it'd be a big story for Hunter Biden. Hunter Biden had a sex tape of him leaked. First of all, Hunter Biden is not running for president. There's nothing wrong with what he did. It's just sensational. You know what is wrong is misappropriating campaign funds to pay your lawyer to pay hush money to a porn star that you fucked. That is a way more monumental claim. It involves an illegality, and it involves the actual person in office, not a family member of that person. So if we were to ever believe that Hunter Biden did anything wrong by having a sex tape leaked, I can't imagine how horrible you think it is that a person that has been the co-conspirator of a indictment from New York was illegitimately using campaign funds to pay hush money to a porn star that he fucked. Man, you must think that's really horrible. And then in terms of taking money from shiesty sources, this idea that if you've worked in politics, you can never work on any type of consulting anything with any company, outside of the U.S. I mean, I guess we can set that standard if we want, but hey, Hunter Biden was appropriately reporting all of his income. It's not like any of that is a mystery or any is hidden or he refuses to publish tax returns or anything like that. So, I mean, yeah, if politicians want to work for consulting or doing things afterwards, I mean, it seems to be the most logical progression of their career. I don't think there's anything wrong with that, especially if they've done it after they have left office and aren't currently in a position to make damaging policy or damaging relationships for the United States, like, for instance, using leverage of misappropriated money from Congress and holding it over Ukraine in order for them to dig up dirt on a political rival.
Okay, next I'm going to throw it over to Dan.
Got a few ones. Important things that I think are actually going to sway people over. Okay, just bear with me. 4 points I'm going to have through here. Number one, Hunter Biden has a big dick and is a Chad, and everyone here fucking knows it, and I'm jealous. Okay, he looks good, and I think there's a big reason they're mad. Number two, Joe Biden likes ice cream. Trump can't even hold some fucking water without being weak. Number three, Biden says cool fucking shit like malarkey and foghorn, and Trump thinks that stealth planes are actually fucking invisible. But let me give you the big reason to vote for Biden over fucking Trump, and everyone's gonna just resonate with this immediately. If Biden gets elected, imagine how fucking mad these guys who vote for Trump are going to be. They're going to be losing their goddamn shit. Me, I don't give a fuck. Trump wins, whatever, lower taxes. These guys are going to go fucking bonkers. They're going to be out there marching with guns and shit. And I'm going to be sitting here laughing my fucking ass off. And you guys will too. Think about how mad Trump will be. Oh my God, the memes are going to be fucking amazing. And then Trump's going to make his own fucking cable news network that's going to rival Fox News. And then they're going to fight it out. And then Fox News is going to get fucked. That's going to be the funniest fucking shit ever. So fuck the politics. Let's just do it to make these guys fucking mad. That's the fucking real reason. So vote for that. Vote for change that you can see. Vote for that.
Okay, throwing it over to wrap this up with CTV. You got 1 minute.
So what I usually try to do when I'm considering some pretty big decisions that I have to make in my life is I try to think about this thing in like 20, 40, 60 years. What would I like to be able to accomplish? What I would like to be able to accomplish is to still have a functioning government. What I would like to be able to accomplish is getting rid of the war on drugs, right? And the other thing that I would like to accomplish is to be able to keep the country functioning while we are going through a lot of changes. That being said, economy needs to be the number one thing that the people are looking at right now for the immediate future of the American people. Therefore, with Biden's record of not really knowing what the fuck is going on with a lot of these things with regard to the economy, I think that the man that has came into office in the last 3 years that gave us the lowest unemployment in history across several spectrums, and we have seen a net positive with regard to the economy until the hit of COVID. There's a conversation to be had about the management of that, but we didn't want him as president because he was a virologist. We wanted him as president because he was a businessman. And we all know the economy needs some fucking work.
Okay.
So there you go.
Wrapping it up, we're going to go into the next topic. I just want to thank everybody. We're at the halfway point. We have about 1 hour left before we're going to wrap up the show. So I want to thank everybody for tuning in. So we've gone to the halfway point of the show. We're going to go into the second segment, which is going to be all about whether you should or shouldn't vote for Donald Trump. I just want to reiterate the rules once more for everybody who's just tuning in now. Once again, here's the rules. Number 1, try your best not to interrupt too much. If you do, I'll step in and I'll stop that. Number 2, do not at each other in chat. That'll just heighten the conversation and it's not productive and you should be paying attention. Number 3, do not talk during other people's opening or ending statements. If you do, you will be muted. And number 4, basically just don't do anything TOS. Oh, and number 5, of course, if I am speaking up, it is to guide the conversation somewhere else, or to give somebody time to speak, or to moderate correctly. So, going forward, please, everybody adhere by those rules, and everybody in chat, once again, do not take all of your opinions from a roundtable panel show on the internet. Please find other sources for information. So we're going to go into the next topic, which is whether you should or shouldn't vote for Donald J. Trump, the current president of the United States. I'm going to start this off in the top left-hand corner once again with RGR.
It's kind of mushy because there's a lot of arguments from before that are going to be brought back over, but I'll try to bridge here. First, I originally wasn't planning for this, but also, like, economy-wise, we have the highest unemployment out of any point in, like, prior history under any other president. So, I mean, like, if we want to make the economy argument, that seems kind of weird. I mean, like, the economy might be better for stockholders or people who are able to retain their job, but for people who actually have lost their job as a response to mishandling of COVID, then I would say that it's not really that great for them. Secondly, Donald Trump has demonstrably, according to studies, emboldened racists, white nationalists, and those who commit hate crimes. According to studies, President Trump's elections was associated with a statistically significant surge in reported hate crimes across the U.S. They also said that Trump tapped into a current authoritarianism in the electorate, one that's bubbled down below the surface for years. And they also researchers find shockingly high levels of anti-democratic beliefs and prejudicial attitudes among Trump backers, especially those who support the president strongly. Also, he has mishandled BLM. We talked about that before. Everything from before that I said, I incorporate that here. Mishandled COVID, everything from the prior debate that I've been on here, 200,000 deaths and counting. He knew about this back in February and he did nothing. He formed no plan to be able to deal with it. He could have told everyone. He could have notified people how dangerous this was. He said that this was, I was just trying to keep down a panic. Well, I mean, like, that seems really inconsistent when you consider how he's treated literally every other subject, when he's talked about immigrants, when he's talked about drugs, when he's talked about, like, name any subject. Like, his playbook is to go to fear-mongering. It seems really inconsistent for him to be able to make that, especially when other countries quickly established a policy. That's how every other country was able to deal with this, broadly speaking, much better than we did. And then lastly, I would say that he's implemented terrible climate change policy, right? He says that he doesn't agree with the science of global warming. He's in the process of reversing nearly 100 environmental rules. He's already weakened Obama-era limits on planet-warming carbon dioxide emissions from power plants and from cars and trucks. He's removed protections from more than half a nation's wetlands, and he's withdrawn legal justification for restricting mercury emissions from power plants. And the cost of his environmental agenda, according to experts, may lead to 80,000 extra deaths per decade. And it's really, in the capstone is that, and we can talk about this more, but we've already talked about it. He's trying to be the president of law and order. It seems really weird when he consistently and repeatedly breaks the law.
Okay.
Pursuant to the earlier discussion. That's it.
Next, we're going to throw it over to TheTerk.
So I could pretty much say the inverse of everything Riley just said. If you take everything up to the pandemic, the economy was doing fine. But if you want to take the pandemic into account as well, you can go to Bureau of Labor Statistics. The unemployment rate is now falling like in a pitfall back down to normal levels. If we were enabled the economy to do what it needs to do in a safe and healthy manner, we can actually continue to grow the economy. Everyone keeps claiming that Trump hasn't had a plan on how to tackle COVID. A lot of countries have not had a plan, and we are learning this through the process. And Trump has been able to get us back on track, and we are getting to the final zone. We don't know when that is. We're still waiting on the science. Oh yeah, and because science is driven by a consensus here, what's the consensus on mask wearing? I'm not saying that I'm an anti-mask person. I'm just saying if y'all are wanting to stick with the science, find a good source of science. Anyways, Trump's policy positions are very right, and that's why I agree with most of them. And gun control is a big thing for me. And with Biden as president, this is of course against Biden.
Got to keep going.
Yeah, never mind.
No problem. You're making a point about gun control. Okay, so we're gonna throw it over to Rob Noerr. 1 minute.
So again, like everyone said, a lot of this will be the same. The number one reason to vote for Trump is the same as it was in 2016, which is to out the corruption in our FBI, media, deep state. Remember, Chuck Schumer told us before Trump was even nominated, once he was just the general elect, that if you criticize the intel community, they'll find 6 ways from Sunday of getting back at you. The intel community is one of the most anti-democratic organizations out there. They now control the mainstream media, where you even have people that released the Snowden papers, like Glenn Greenwald, who had to leave his own organization because they're censoring anything critical of the deep state, the intel communities, and Biden. Other reasons to vote for Trump are because there will be radical things that will occur on the left, such as packing the courts, such as embracing rioters and mobsters. I thought it was funny in Destiny's open statement, he said there's so much rioting and stuff going on under Trump. Yes, so because Biden supporters are rioting, we shouldn't vote for Trump. In addition, Trump presided over unprecedented unemployment numbers. The GDP is climbing back, and he's had historic Middle East peace deals. Remember, the big criticism of Trump from many people on the left was that he would be a disaster with foreign policy. We now see Middle East peace deals that would have received Barack Obama 5 or 6 Nobel Peace Prize. Instead, Barack Obama got a Nobel Peace Prize for engaging in wars across the world.
I don't mean to do this on purpose, because with my foreign policy, it looks like this is a conspiracy, but your time did just run up, so I gotta keep it going.
No problem.
Okay, we're throwing it over to Joe Lewis.
My 3 pivots of why you should not vote for Donald Trump. You ready for this? An established cabinet, the First Step Act, and his response to BLM. I'm going to start there very quickly for point by point. His response to the riots is absolute dog shit. The response to his demonstrations is absolute dog shit. Why is it dog shit? Because he has William Barr breathing down his fucking neck. William Barr, the same motherfucker who botched the fucking riot, the LA riots in 92. This is the same motherfucker that got ousted from Republican politics. And right after Jeff Sessions, we have this motherfucker to deal with again as a black American. I'm really fucking frustrated that piece of shit is back. The First Step Act is fucking dog shit. It needs to be revised. Donald Trump is not going to revise that. And finally, it's going to make 2 things very, very clear. We do not have a Senate confirmed Secretary of the Office of Homeland Security, and 3 out of the 5 directors of the Secretary for Homeland Security are in acting roles, and we currently don't have an acting director there. And also, we're going to go an entire administration without a Senate confirmed director of ICE, which is fucking ridiculous. We're time to get rid of George Bush's little fucking experiment, because Donald Trump can't deal with it.
Okay, gotta throw it over to counterpoints.
Yep. So basically, if you wanted to vote for Trump, the reason why you would do that is because he's an immigration isolationist. So basically, I think he's halved legal immigration and, pretty much, been very hawkish on illegal immigration. If that's something that you care about, that would be a positive. He probably won't do anything about guns. And also the economy will be really good, barring COVID, until it busts. But obviously the economy doing super well is not really meaningful if you're a Walmart employee making $7 an hour. So that's kind of where I think that's the positive reasons, I guess. The reasons why you shouldn't, under COVID, he's definitely going to open up the economy. More people are going to die. Racial tensions are going to suck for the next, half decade while he's still in office. The riots are probably going to get worse. The normalization of authoritarianism is pretty fucked up. As somebody who really cares about the Constitution, I don't like the fact that he jokes about being a president for life. If you care about climate change, then obviously he's not going to do shit about that. And then also, even if Joe Biden does seize power, chances are any bill that he passes for guns will be watered down, and any environmental legislation or Green New Deal legislation that he passes will be watered down as well.
Okay, gonna throw it over to Dan. Got 1 minute.
I'm not sure where to start. I'm not sure what to say, what hasn't been said at this point. Trump's just a mess, a huge mess across the board. That should be apparent to anyone there. And just the fact that, no one who worked for Trump at the beginning of his administration is still there. Why is that? What does Occam's razor tell you? Is it just he's just really weird coincidence? Or perhaps this dude is corrupt as fuck, right? What do you think is more likely? Okay, but let me give you, because I know we're kind of into conspiracy theories here a little bit. Let's talk about the fact that Trump literally told Putin, the locations of different army units in Afghanistan for Russia to kill, okay? And they did this because Trump's trying to build a hotel in Moscow, okay? Now, I don't know why no one's really reporting on this, but I don't know what more you can say about the fact that you have unironic American soldiers dying, okay? And you have people like Roger Stone that are out there covering this up, and no one's talking about it. Okay, no one's going to die. Americans were dying over there. No one's saying that didn't happen. The fact is that just there's so much corruption with this guy. I don't know what to say.
Well,
Where does it start? And where does it
don't
end?
worry. We can move on to the next person. Time's up. We're going to throw it over to Destiny.
Is this why you shouldn't vote for Trump? Right?
You should or shouldn't if you want to endorse Trump right now.
Oh, yeah. No, I'm good on that. You shouldn't vote for Trump. It's really simple, actually, because Republicans don't give a fuck about you. Anytime Republicans are looking to do anything related to states' rights, they're just trying to take away freedoms from you. Nancy Pelosi, Queen Pelosi, most beautiful person in all of Congress, left a $2 trillion stimulus bill on top of Mitch McConnell's desk. And after they finished the ACB nomination, he moonwalked the fuck out, called a big recess, said, we'll come back next year, see what's going on. And they fucking pieced the fuck out. Republicans don't give a fuck about you. Why the fuck would you vote for them?
That was the shortest of all of them. Only person that's going over the time. Okay, we're going to go over to CTV.
I think that we're probably going to end up having a pretty good discussion, but I want to go ahead and say this ahead of time, something that I feel pretty strongly about. Especially when it comes to a public health situation, the states of the United States are what is comparable to other nations of the world. You cannot make a fair comparison to our federal government of the United States, because with public health, those things need to be as close to the people that they are affecting as possible, and that's why the states would be comparable only, not the federal government.
Okay, now I'm going to bring it onto the open floor. You may now engage. Just please do your best to be respectful.
I got a really serious question. Name me a fucking member of something that's going to be the director of ICE that Trump can make it through the Senate. We're going through 4 years of this organization that also has an acting director at its parent organization, the Office of Homeland Security. They both have acting directors. Who would you appoint and why? If you were conservative, who would you appoint and why?
I don't know. I don't have a specific person that I would appoint as the director of ICE, but I'm not sure I understand how this is an attack on Trump.
I'd appoint
because
Jeff
Democrats
Sessions.
would be.
We've had 7 directors of ICE, and they haven't had a Senate confirmed director.
How's that an attack on Trump?
This is under Donald Trump's watch. 7 directors that he appointed under acting roles. He has not brought forth a single person that can be confirmed through the Senate. So my question again is, who do you think he should target and appoint? Because if you're going into another administration without a director of ICE, knowing that there's kids in cages, knowing that their kids are not going to be connected to their families, you better fucking come up with somebody. Because at this point, there's a very clear
I would
statement on the
appoint Jeff
far
Sessions.
left that could abolish ICE.
I would
There's a
appoint
very
Jeff
clear
Sessions.
argument. Yes.
I think I don't understand how this is an attack on Trump, because senators are unwilling to approve people that he's put forth.
He has
when we're
never
talking about.
brought someone to the table.
Okay,
And
when
Since
we're
Sarah
talking about.
Saldana resigned, he has not brought forth a single person. In
Oh,
4
but that might be
years.
true.
Well, Joe.
I don't know.
Well, I would do Joe Arpaio personally. You know.
Anyways, when we're
Yeah,
talking
Dylan,
about
I
kids
was
and
gonna fucking meme.
when we're
7
talking about
acting
kids in
directors.
cages, remember that was created in the Obama administration for
7
some reason.
acting directors.
Right. I
acting.
understand that's not an answer to the fact that
Guys,
the Obama administration created
this
those
is the
cages.
great
But
thing
that's
about
not-
being centrist is you don't have to pretend that everybody's
At
fucking
the time,
awesome
please.
when
Wait,
they
wait,
really
okay.
should.
What at the time? Counter. I couldn't hear anything you just said because 3 people were talking at once.
This is the awesome thing about being a centrist. You don't have to pretend that fucking shitbags are heroes just because they're on your fucking team. So Joe Lewis, I have to assume the insinuation here is that he's basically not appointed anybody
I've
because
got
they
a
can
name.
all be fucked up and aggressive and then basically be fired as soon as they were hired or dismissed as quickly as they were hired. So since you have nobody that you can pin all the fucked up shit on, basically ICE can be as fucked up as they want to be. Is that the
Exactly.
insinuation?
And it's also fucked up under Donald Trump's watch because again, the person above him is the Secretary of Homeland Security, who's in an acting role. You know who that motherfucker is? Chad Wolf. And I don't want to go down a rabbit hole about Chad Wolf. We could be here for hours. But again, my concern is if you're trying to advocate for Trump an additional role, you cannot ignore that his cabinet is fucked up. Like, look, this is a clear target on the far left who want to abolish ICE. And people want to advocate, you can't abolish ICE, you can't abolish ICE. Well, they don't have an acting fucking director, and Donald Trump has had 7 tries and put people in active positions. And again, like, you want to be hard on immigration, but goddamn, you can't even appoint directors to the 2 fucking groups?
Well, and I'll just jump in before letting you
Yeah.
go, Noerr. So Noerr and Turk, I very much doubt are evil, cruel-hearted people who just want to do fucked up shit to random people for no fucking reason. But
Absolutely.
I almost guarantee you that this is like purposeful incompetence in order to do what they're doing at the border without being able to hold anybody accountable.
Right. So why am I supposed to trust? How am I supposed to trust Donald Trump if he's not? And again, like, he's very quick about Supreme Court justices. We saw that in practice. But then when it comes to the actual problems within the system, why is he choosing to ignore this thing?
So I've got a response and then a question back to you. I would nominate Sheriff David Clark. He seems to be a pretty sharp Republican that has some law enforcement stuff. You know, granted, I know nothing about this realm, but that's a name. That's a start, right? But who would you appoint? Who would Joe Biden put on the head of ICE?
I mean, honestly, the head of ICE, if I'm really trying to pick an assassin, I'd pick John Kelly. Full stop.
I mean, my point to this is that, like, what I have to say about immigration, it's clear that Joe Biden is, unfortunately, I think that your point about the importance of people in the cabinet, I think that that's kind of an admission that we all understand that Biden's not really going to be the leader in his administration. I'm not trying to make any cheap points or jokes, but it's clear that he's having some problems and cognitively he's on the decline. So it'll be more Kamala Harris's administration and the people behind the scenes, which is beautiful for the Democrats because that's their whole agenda. They have people behind the scenes that want to control things like those in the CIA, the FBI, organizations like that. But when it comes to the border specifically, I think that Trump and the conservatives are far more in line with the correct solution for this country. We need to worry about illegal immigrations. You see Joe Biden, for example, saying that he would make 11 million illegals immediately citizens or on a path to citizenship. This will provide an incentive, especially because other people around him have basically said they want to make it so it's not criminal across the border illegally. So this will provide a massive incentive to bring illegals to this country, which directly compete with in inner cities with low-skilled workers, which predominantly are Black Americans. This is another thing that's being done by Joe Biden and the left that is anti-Black American, which I think we should all be concerned about. And oftentimes these illegals that come are sexually trafficked and they are used by drug organizations, coyotes, and other things. So yeah, although you might have an actual point, I haven't looked into this issue about the director.
But again, friend, like, how are you supposed to do all these changes that you're proposing if you don't have a director for the 2 organizations that would be responsible for imposing those changes?
There's clearly people that are acting in positions of leadership in ICE. So just because
He's
an
had
official
7
director hasn't
directors.
Okay, but did he appoint those directors?
Yes.
And did he try to get them
in active
confirmed by the Senate?
positions.
Did he try to get them confirmed by the Senate?
No.
Okay, well, I don't know what the strategic nature, and that could be a blunder. I don't know. It's honestly something I'm ignorant. I think that that's, to me, I think that that doesn't mean that ICE is acting without leadership, and I don't think that this is a big reason to vote for or against Donald Trump, but I'd be willing to look into it and have a discussion with you. I would. I just don't see this as a high.
Yeah, because again, like Republicans want to be hard on an immigration, but the 2 groups that are responsible in part for some of the most strictest things in terms of immigration, it just shows that Donald Trump doesn't give a shit about that. So how are you supposed to say that Donald Trump is going to be hard on immigration when he hasn't done shit? I will give you this, though. He did lower the cap for asylum applicants, which is something that Joe Biden can do on his first day in office with a fucking sneeze in the right direction. However, there are problems with the asylum seeker process. Dylan, as well as I think Turk was on that panel when we talked about that, where right now Donald Trump is dealing with a problem that the cap that he keeps setting for asylum seekers is not high enough. And he keeps running into this problem where he goes over the cap. Joe Biden can change that cap literally without any help with the Senate or the House. However, it just really is concerning to me that conservatives are hardline on immigration, yet they're not fucking bullying Donald Trump and getting a fucking director and getting just fucking assassins. Like, I fucking hate John Kelly. He's pure fucking evil, but he's a Republican assassin.
If I may, real quick, just real quick on this, if I may, if it's that important to know who presidents would appoint to positions, are you at all concerned that Joe Biden refuses to answer if he'll pack the court and who his list of judges would be?
Shenanigans, Supreme Court shenanigans beget Supreme Court shenanigans. So I
Okay.
think it's very unlikely that Joe Biden is going to even remotely try to pack the court, because there's so much other bullshit that can happen on the Republican side, and it's just going to be this like bullshit dick measuring contest of dick pills. My dick's 9 inches. Well, my dick's now 10 inches. Well, my dick's now 11 inches, and neither side has time for that nonsense. So I don't think Joe Biden nor the Biden administration is going to participate in this idea of back in the court.
Well,
I
if they
think
did,
again,
after what happened with Garland, I mean, I don't really know how Republicans could complain.
Because it's what happened to Garland wasn't a situation that involved destroying the norms of the court of the 9 justices that we've had for what?
It did involve destroying the norms of the Senate and an express power to the President of the United States, which is the ability to nominate and have heard a Supreme Court justice. This was the longest vacancy ever in the history of the Supreme Court. I don't know how that doesn't destroy norms of the court when we had an unfilled seat for a year, but okay.
Full disclosure, I actually disliked what happened with Merrick Garland. I agree with you there, though. I don't think, like we already had Bork mentioned earlier, we mentioned about the treatment that he received. That was also a return or a deviation from the norm, the way that he was treated. Then we had Brett Kavanaugh
he advocated for segregation,
being a gang rapist, which is we had Brett Kavanaugh accused of being a gang rapist and having his life destroyed in front of his family.
Where is Gorsuch and Kavanaugh? Where are Gorsuch and Kavanaugh right now?
It's irrelevant. We saw that.
It's totally relevant. Where are Gorsuch and Kavanaugh right now? Where are they?
What does that have to do with anything? The fact
because
that
they're in the Supreme Court.
What do you think allegations.
Where are they right now?
Two things.
Where are they?
Two things. One, didn't Obama say elections have consequences? So they didn't have the Senate with Merrick Garland. So that's why that happened. That doesn't justify weaponizing sexual assault allegations.
The election that has consequences is the presidential election, because the president is the one that has the sole power to make nominations to the Supreme Court. That was an express power. The 2016 election had the consequence of Obama being allowed to do that.
The 2016 election also kept the Senate in the Republican majority,
Right.
so it was their duty to not confirm anyone that was there.
They didn't even give him a hearing.
Like, why didn't
because they didn't have the vote.
For over 8 months compared to like what they're doing right now. Like someone asked me, like someone answered me this, like how fast from the beginning of when she was nominated to when she was confirmed, like how fast was that? Like
28 days.
28 days. All right. How long did Republicans saw the Garland hearing, or like did they saw that?
4 months.
A year and 4 months. I'm sorry. Maybe it's just me. I cannot look at those and think that those are equivalent. I can't.
Those are bullshit
No one said
numbers,
they
by
are.
the way, but they're approximately true.
Okay, they're bullshit numbers. All right, well, I'm just
It
trusting
was
you.
not a year and 4 months.
Yeah, no,
It wasn't a
they
year
are
and 4
they are approximately true though.
Yeah.
And then Destiny, I mean this is directed to Destiny and RGR. So the Merrick Garland was the nominee for Obama, right? Was he a centrist or a liberal? What was his?
Wasn't he like center left? Garland?
Center
Center
left.
left, yeah, center left.
Okay,
Yeah.
so if he was center left, and who was he replacing?
I don't remember.
Scalia.
Fucking Antonin Scalia,
Oh,
that
Scalia,
fucking
okay.
dog
So
shit.
would
God,
that
fuck
not
this guy.
have flipped the court to like a 6-3 liberal
It
to
doesn't-
conservative?
It doesn't matter. What is that? What
Isn't
relevance?
isn't that the norm that's like basically everybody shitting their pants over is now
No,
the
what? No,
conservatives
what?
have,
What?
like, a
No.
grip on the court?
Whoa. No, the
Whoa,
norm
whoa.
is not the political inclination of the Supreme Court justices. The norm is that the President of the United States has delegated to him the power to nominate somebody to the Supreme Court, and the Senate violated norms by killing the filibuster in order to not have any hearing whatsoever related to Obama's nominee. That was the
Democrats?
They completely did a 180 with this nomination.
Let me get to a question of decorum. So if they had heard it, but then they used their Senate, basically non-major or like slight majority, if they just used it to kill Garland, would you have been okay with that?
Yeah,
It would have been shitty, but it would have been better. It's happened in the past. I don't think Senate should do that, but there is precedence for that. I think it's okay. I don't like it.
Can I follow up on the
let me
question real
say
quick?
something about it.
Sure.
I as a prudential matter, right? I think that would have been much better, because then like the government, then like the people who the constituents who actually vote in senators would actually have some kind of basis to be able to evaluate whether or not that was an honest, and whether or not that was like a meaningfully prudential kind of a hearing, right? Like now, the voters didn't really have anything to go on, right? They were just like, oh, well, they just didn't even have a hearing to begin with, right? But if we did have a hearing, then at least voters would be able to account for like, okay, was this actually a fair hearing? Did they actually like choose to nominate or not nominate this person based on the merits of their credentials and so on? We don't, like, compared to that, like we were just like steamrolling the current justice through the Supreme Court, right? Like people have whiplash from how fast it went, right? I feel like that's fundamentally incomparable.
Arjara, can I ask you something?
Yeah, go for it.
Do you feel, let's say, okay, let's go back. We're going to go back to a time a couple of months ago.
Okay.
How would you feel if Donald Trump elected Merrick Garland?
If Donald Trump elected Merrick Garland?
Or
No,
nominated,
Merrick
I
Garland?
should say. Excuse me.
Oh, nominated
Nominated.
Merrick Garland.
Yeah, sorry. about that. This is the same question for everybody, by the way.
Yeah. Would a center would actually that's what I was expecting him to do. I was expecting him to push a centrist as like a peace offering to Democrats. He didn't. He went in the opposite direction. So I'm just kind of wondering to the left side of the panel, would that have been better? Would you have appreciated that more?
I feel like what I would have wanted, I mean, it might have been a little bit better just because then you would end up with a more balanced Supreme Court, but it would be inconsistent with what they had priorly established, right? Like if the precedent that we're setting is that a president shouldn't be able to nominate someone during their last year of their term, then we should probably hold that to be consistent, even if it would otherwise be beneficial to like one side or the other.
Well, and I remember the bullshit propaganda of that last year, which was like, it's an election year, Obama's a lame duck, he shouldn't have the right to nominate anybody. I remember that propaganda, but the propaganda did switch in the past 2 months where they basically said, oh, no. It wasn't because Obama was it was because he was a lame duck, but it wasn't because it was last year. It's because we had control of the Senate. So they moved the goalpost as far as like what the propaganda was for why they weren't doing it. But that's still, I don't think it's a politically consistent argument, but that's kind of what they said.
Yeah,
was
I don't
basically like we wouldn't have approved him anyways.
Well, I mean, like for me, I just want rules to be consistent, right? Like that's the main thing that I want out of this, right? Like here, we didn't have consistent application of a rule. If they set a rule that we actually followed in this case, I feel like it would have been a lot better.
Yeah.
Okay, now real quick,
So
who killed the filibuster again? Who killed the filibuster on
For
federal
Supreme
court?
Court for Supreme Court nominees, it was Mitch McConnell.
So it was okay for Harry Reid, the Democrats, to undo precedent and destroy norms when it came to the federal courts, but it was horrible for the Republicans to do that when it came to the Supreme Court. That's your argument.
They were doing that. They were
though.
doing that because those judiciary picks were being filibustered constantly. Not saying that I agree with it, but there's a difference between doing that to get picks through versus doing it to prevent a pick from going through.
I don't
Rob,
think there is
again,
a difference. I think.
Of course you don't, because you're a Republican hack. But there is a difference. There clearly is a difference. If somebody has to end the filibuster, which I disagree with, but if somebody's ending the filibuster to get processes done versus somebody else doing it to prevent them from happening, those are fundamentally different things. Unless you're
both sides did it when it was to politically be advantageous to themselves. Both sides did it for that reason. And trying to parse, well, it was okay for one side to do it and not the other seems nonsensical. Let me ask you all this. Would it have been preferable to allow the hearing of Merrick Garland to occur, but then for the Republicans to repeatedly call him a gang rapist?
No. I asked my question first. I expect an answer from every conservative. Counterpoints participated in it. All four of you got to do it too.
No, it wouldn't have made any difference to me. It would have been really dumb for Donald Trump to use his Supreme Court pick on a Merrick Garland.
Why?
Because it doesn't help his side politically in any way whatsoever. By the same token, there's all kinds of compromises then you could ask of the left. For example, should they allow Trump to use unverified opposition research to have a 4-year investigation into the Democrats, including spying on them using.
You mean like they did with Hillary Clinton in her emails, like they did with the Benghazi hearings, like they're doing now with Hunter Biden?
Wait,
dude, Republicans have done this all day.
Did they send? Oh, they wiretapped Hillary Clinton's campaign. They did.
No, because they couldn't even get the fake evidence for it. So I'm curious, how do you feel about the years that we had to hear about, and we still hear about Hillary Clinton's emails?
Right.
Oh my God.
Against the law.
Dude,
I love the tinfoil hats, but I really want Turk to answer my question too. I really want Turk and CTV to answer my question.
Was impeached, right?
What was the question?
The question is, again, because we're going on Pivot Island. If Donald Trump used his nomination for Merrick Garland, how would you feel about that?
Hey, if he nominates the person and the Senate confirms it, that's the law. They have the law and they can fulfill their duty. That's the word of the law.
CTV, same question.
I guess I'm just going to be honest and say I don't know who Merrick Garland is, and I'm very happy with Amy Coney Barrett. Her answers that she gave at the Senate hearing were outstanding.
Know what the rights protected by the First Amendment are.
And I think that it was rather like a really good thing that they nominated a female to replace Ruth Bader Ginsburg. Felt like that was pretty square. So
yeah, female drone pilots.
Do you think Merrick Garland would have been confirmed if Donald Trump nominated him?
No.
Probably, yeah, of course. Why not?
I don't think Republican Senate would have allowed it. Like McConnell's ruthless. I don't think that he would have had a left winger. I don't think he would have allowed the Republican-controlled Senate to nominate her. Just my opinion.
Sure.
All right. Destiny said something that triggered the fuck out of me. Can I go?
Oh, the buttery emails?
Yeah. Let's do it.
I
You can
mean,
go.
the
Go.
panel's about why we should vote for Trump, right?
I'm just curious when people are so
can-
mad about
can I
Russian
please-
collusion, which turned out
can I-
credible indictments, but we had to
No.
hear for months and months about Hillary, the State Department's email thing, and Hillary's, and nothing. It was talk about a nothing burger. That was like a nothing feast. That was a nothing 7-course meal.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Okay.
Dylan,
You go
I
into it,
need-
but right after that, I do want to drag it back over to something else because we've been going on about this for a
I
while.
need probably 90 seconds to 120 seconds to address this. I'll try to be
I'll give you
as
7.
long
I'll
as
give you
possible.
70. I'll give you 70. That's what you're getting.
All right, thank you kindly. All right, so in reference to the emails, basically what Hillary Clinton was guilty of was taking like SCI, basically the highest level clearance in the fucking country, and transferring it to a private email server. If a lance corporal in the fucking military did that shit, not only would he be in the fucking brig, but he would lose his fucking top secret clearance for the remainder of his fucking career. Not only is that fucking true, but she was running for the fucking like the head of the fucking country. Now, obviously, standards have dropped in the past half decade, so Hillary Clinton would probably have been better than fucking Donald Trump, blah, 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 fucking blah. But at the same time, you're basically talking about a fucking, you're talking about a mistake that if a 19-year-old made, he would be in fucking jail and unable to do his fucking job for the rest of his fucking life. So it's not a nothing
Good thing
burger,
Hillary
it's
Clinton's not a
something
random
burger.
19-year-old, I guess.
Okay. No,
Yes,
yeah,
I think
I-
for a long
the
time,
established
she didn't
precedent, and we've heard this. The established
Secretary of
precedent,
State
the,
who
esta-
fucked up something that a 19-year-old shouldn't fuck up, or
the
else he ends up
State
in jail.
Department
All right,
and
hold on,
Powell
hold on,
came
hold on,
out.
I'm not done
He-
yet.
he
I'm
does-
going
he-
to Gazi.
Oh,
I only
come on,
got
who
10
cares?
seconds left, Destiny, please. So-
Okay, finish. You got 10 seconds left.
All right. So in reference to fucking Benghazi, the whole fucking problem was the fact that military forces were not scrambled in order to assist the fucking embassy that was under attack. So basically, they called off the reinforcements before they even knew that people were dead on the fucking ground. Now, that could be a logistical thing, a political thing. There's all these things that go fucking into it, and wasting fucking 2 years on the investigation was stupid as fuck. But at the same time, basically, Americans being in the line of fire and you don't even send reinforcements while they're not even dead yet is fucked up.
It's strange how fucked up that was, yet absolutely nothing credible. No convictions came from any of these things, whether it was the email thing or whether it was the hours and hours we had to listen to about the fucking, what were the 4 people that died during Benghazi? Holy shit. Are you fucking kidding me? And in terms of the email private server shit, unfortunately, I agree, it was fucked. This was standard practice, unfortunately. Colin Powell himself had a private email server, and people had talked about how lax the State Department was. And we'd even heard that other fuck-ups when it comes to clearance stuff has happened as well. For instance, Kushner fucking up like his fucking security clearance shit. Like, come on, dude. The idea that there is some like strict, stringent security standards that are being like used for all of our emails, when we've seen like fucking Donald Trump emailing stupid shit, when we've seen his fucking Twitter accounts getting hacked by passwords shit, we can sit here and feign indignance and talk about how horrible and evil all of it was. But the reality was they were, a little bit careless with some of their shit, or maybe they were doing things that weren't exactly strictly on policy, but they weren't committing these horrible fucking acts of passing on private information to other countries that were trying to destroy America, which was the original claim of the Republicans. Not that Hillary Clinton had engaged in some lax security behavior related to fucking emails, which, by the way, ironically enough, still have never been shown to have been leaked to Russians or China or any of the other shit that any of the Republicans had originally claimed.
If I may,
You're
because I
wrong,
think
but I
it's
love you and I'll let
actually
it go.
if I may, because I think this does have to do with the current election, because I think that the election of Joe Biden is to further help cover up the crimes and the malfeasance we've seen in organizations like the FBI. So, for example, when Destiny's saying, oh, look at the crimes that were charged, that proves some sort of Russia collusion. Yes, crimes like Paul Manafort for failing to register as a foreign lobbyist like Hunter Biden was doing. In the Mueller indictment, it says specifically, no, he didn't. In the Mueller
wasn't he charged for
indictment,
anything?
it says, there's still an active investigation into Hunter
No,
Biden.
there's not.
According to FBI sources that was just released this week, that's true.
There's
Anyways,
an investigation into the
staying-
origin of the laptop. There's not an active investigation into Hunter Biden being like an unregistered foreign agent. That is not true.
Anyways, continuing, Manafort in the Mueller indictment, it said that he worked with Group 1 and Group 2. Group 1 was Mercury LLC. Group 2 was the Podesta Group. So the Podestas, who was Hillary's campaign chair, committed the exact same crime with the exact same people as failing to register as a foreign lobbyist. Yet the FBI let them go with retroactively filing paperwork and threw Manafort in solitary confinement. We also see in the course of the Hillary email investigation, they deleted subpoenaed evidence. Her assistant named Paul Combetta, who went by the nickname Stone Tier, did that. He deleted subpoenaed evidence, which is actual obstruction of justice and a federal crime. They were let go. We see from text of FBI agents that they said it defined credulity that when the FBI interviewed Hillary Clinton, she said she thought C on the papers meant alphabetical order as opposed to confidential or classified. In other words, the FBI felt that Hillary Clinton lied to the FBI. We see the FBI text message that says that her assistants Mills and Abedin both testified, and this was from Peter Strzok's notes, both testified they had no knowledge of Hillary Clinton's server prior to her tenure as the Secretary of State. Yet emails released by both Mills and Abedin showed that as early as 2009, they knew about her server. In other words, they lied to the FBI. Now, you saying that the Russia investigation was legit because it got indictments, none of those indictments had to do with anything in Trump's team doing anything illegal with Russians. It was all for lying or for failing to register as a foreign lobbyist in 2013 with Hillary's campaign team. So why is it that the FBI, in the first case in history that I know of, with Trump, they went as hard as possible, which is what you would expect. They tried to get low-level people and turn the screws. With Hillary, they granted everyone immunity, smashed all the devices, and said, hey, do you guys want to say anything about Hillary Clinton? And everyone went, no, we don't. And yet you use that as evidence for why the FBI investigation to Trump was important, and the one to Hillary proves that she's innocent. I just think that's laughable.
Here's a super real one quick question. This is so interesting to me. So it's the easiest hand wave of every single conspiratorial nonsense claim you just made. It's Trump's appointee to the FBI. If Trump is so confident that all of this malfeasance and horrible stuff happened, then why didn't he appoint somebody that would investigate it?
Because his strong suit that he claimed was putting good people around him is actually garbage. He put garbage deep state people around him.
Okay, so Trump is so absolutely fucking incompetent that he can't make good appointees. Like one of the most important jobs of the president. If you want to eat the fucking L on that, that's fine then. Fine. Then Trump is literally a walking fucking retard that can't like practice one of the most important parts of
Destiny, please.
No, that's cool.
Destiny. Please don't use that word.
I didn't really hear anything about how George Soros was funding all of this, like during that thing, and I was expecting.
We haven't even talked about the Jews yet.
Guys.
Dan, can you let the big boys talk? You're not adding anything.
Guys, hold on.
I thought George Soros funds all this stuff. No.
Can I be honest about something?
Conspiracy theories.
I'll respond to Destiny, but if Joe wants to go,
yeah. Can I be honest about something? Look, man. As much as I want to grill CTV about how he has no idea who Merrick Garland is, respectfully, I have no idea what the fuck you guys are talking about. So if I'm probably not alone here, and there is a lot of passion on both sides of this conversation, but maybe I feel like we should talk about something that's a little bit more less in a weird way of like participation. You feel me?
If I can, Joe, if I can real quick, I'll respond to Destiny and respond. I think that it's troubling that you don't know about this, because the argument I make, I'm not a progressive, but I have plenty of friends that are progressive. I think they could be great people. I have friends on the left and right, no problem. I don't think that no matter what your issue is, regardless if you're progressive or conservative or anywhere in between, that your voice really matters if we have people like the FBI that are putting their thumbs on the scale of who they'll go after as a presidential candidate or as a president, and allowing them to point who they think should be in charge. So at the end of the day, all of the issues, I'm afraid you're going to realize if Joe Biden wins this election, that all of the issues that you're concerned about in the Black community, many of which I think are important and need addressed, that he'll end up, as always, every 4 years, they talk about the problems of the Black community, and then they'll basically do nothing. And we'll be back to supporting all of these wars that we see overseas, and we'll be back to supporting anything that gets these establishment people power.
Does the FBI favor the Democrats? Is the FBI after? Why did Comey come out and sink Hillary's campaign?
Because Comey admitted it in his book and in other places that he assumed that Hillary had it in the bag, like every other establishment.
So he came out and did negative attacks on her campaign when it was that close.
If you allow me to finish, he said that he assumed she would win, and he thought this would be an albatross hanging around her neck like the Benghazi thing for 2 years. So he figured that he would come out with it, say it wasn't a big deal, and then allow people to vote. And then Hillary would have been able to say, look, everyone knew about this when they voted for me. It's a dead issue. That's why Comey did it.
Crazy. So there's always
can I ask a couple follow-up questions? No, I just because like I do want to like learn more, right? Like if I don't know about this, because like I find that I'm remiss, right? Just like a couple quick questions, because I'm interested in like what evidence is there for basically what you provided, and is any of it like not hearsay? Because that's usually the problem that I find with like a lot of these like kind of conspiratorial or like theories that are like painted as conspiracies. I'm not saying that inherently that they are, but like, is there any evidence that like there's any evidence to be able to show what you're saying, that like there is a deep state bias in favor of the Democratic Party and away from the Republican Party that's not just like hearsay and speculation?
Just so I'm clear, I have the same question as well. That's why I'm kind of just like,
can I address this?
Yeah,
sure.
Yeah. Okay. So basically, as somebody who worked for the state, obviously in very minimal roles, but at the same time, like I've seen some of these things that are basically like, why the fuck was I in Japan? I was in Japan because basically we have bases all over the world. Why do we have bases all over the world? Because we're trying to freeze borders and the economy and, basically foreign countries and all that kind of stuff. Why are we doing that? Because we're a transnational globalist superpower, basically a fucking empire that's competing with socialist and fascist nations across the entire world. So this entire empire takes a shitload of fucking effort. You can't have a single fucking person like Donald Trump, who's not a member of the fucking deep state, show up and fuck it up in one day. He can do his best to fuck it up, but it's super fucking hard for him to fuck it up. We have international trade deals, we have international arms deals, we have international logistics deals, we have, cargo containers that are shipping across the entire world right now that are completely reliant on American security and American military force in order to do this thing. Dan Carlin, the host of one of the history podcasts, I forget what it is, but he was actually invited in order to go sit on a fucking meeting with the Joint Chiefs of Staff. And basically in that meeting, James Mattis was talking about how do we get our weapons into a certain XYZ West African fucking country. So we have, not only are we selling the weapons and making money, but also we have like training and logistical cross compatibility so we can go ahead and stand up to China. So this entire system, whenever somebody starts throwing up like an eyebrow, like, I don't understand what you're talking about with the deep state. This all sounds deeply conspiratorial. Donald Trump fucking it up can't be that big of a fucking deal. This thing is the motherfucking Titanic. And when you have names like Bush and Clinton and Biden and all that kind of stuff, they know how to steer the Titanic because they've been a part of it for decades. So when you kind of say, like, what's the evidence for the deep state existing and having an entrenched interest, I would be kind of interested in the counter argument to that there is not a deep state that doesn't have an entrenched interest, that isn't like transnational and globalist and capitalist. I would be interested in that, kind of like counter argument.
I invite so many links on this.
There's a couple. I have a couple things on that, right? So far that sounds like, you've taken a couple facts and it sounds like you're putting them together by speculation. there could be any of a number of things to be able to explain like the circumstances that you brought up. Also, North America, I don't actually know what your name is. I'm apologizing.
Rob.
I looked up.
No problem.
Rob. Okay, cool. You just sent me. What was the link that you just sent me, or that you posted in chat?
From the Daily Caller, it has actual links. We'll talk about one area of that when I get a chance.
Okay, but is that? I'm looking at Media's Bias fact check, and it says that it's like an extremely right wing reporter. So is that do you have any more reliable sources for
yes,
what you're talking about?
If you go down, for example, if you go down, it actually shows the FBI 302s highlighted there. So this isn't hearsay from the Daily Caller. It's actually the FBI's official document of their interview with Mills and Abedin. And also, it's usually bad form. I don't think there's much of a debate could be had. If you cite something from the New York Times, am I going to say, oh, they're left-wing biased, they push the Trump-Russia thing? That doesn't seem to get us far. But if you would like, I could go through two of the claims I made there. For example, Mills and Abedin lying to the FBI, and I could go through Paul Combetta deleting subpoenaed evidence. Both of that there's definitive proof for. So we can go through it if you like.
Yeah, but what does that prove is my question, right?
Sure.
Go ahead.
It proves the FBI engaged in a double standard. That the FBI, when they went after Trump, went after any low-level crime they could find, tried to turn the screws on people, and then tried to go after Donald Trump. Because as Counterpoints is saying, they have a preference, and they wanted an establishment person like Hillary Clinton as opposed to someone like Donald Trump. Chuck Schumer admitted to us that, quote, the intel community will find 6 ways from Sunday of getting back at you. Therefore, the most powerful elected leader of the free world, Donald Trump, must be fearful of unelected bureaucrats because they would ruin his presidency. And predictably, that's exactly what happened. They went as soft as a touch as possible. We now know that there were actually intel agents that were concerned because there was credible evidence that Hillary Clinton concocted the entire Trump-Russia collusion story to deflect from the crimes and the investigation that she had about her server. So if you'd like, I could go through the evidence here from the 302s proving Mills and Abedin lied to the FBI and they weren't charged.
And I would like to talk about protests.
Sure, we could change if you want.
Look, we have 24 minutes left till I have to quit, and because I got other work I got to get done for
all right, well, we can actually, I will want to talk to you, but right now it just seems like you're drawing a conclusion that, right now it seems that you're able to conclude that, these specific things happen, but, the thing that you do need to prove that doesn't seem to be here is intent, right? These things may have happened, but you can't tell us, why they happened. You can't peer into the mind of, the people conducting the investigations and tell us, why they took these certain actions. You can, all right, no, that's other,
okay.
Responding to the counterpoints, you may, again, it's speculation. This is fundamentally, this would be inadmissible in court, right? You can say that you believe things and this is your rationally based perception, but for you to say that this is what other people thought based on what they did, that would be inadmissible because you're not a mind reader, you know?
Okay.
No,
give me a moment. Okay. I just need you to respond to chat, and then I'm gonna throw it over to Joe Lewis because we want to talk about the protests. Rich, responding to chat about stop platforming conspiracy theorists. I don't care if RGR and Joe believe in that the Earth is round. I'll still platform them, even if they're insane. I don't care. So please, Joe, you can continue.
Yeah. So all right. So we're dealing with it's not even the worst. We haven't seen the worst yet when it comes to these demonstrations across the country. My question is, or I guess like I'll set up the scene and then I have a question with that. We're going to get a verdict of George Floyd, and not a lot of people are going to be happy. And I feel very deep pain in my heart that I feel like that's the eventuality, but I don't think people are going to like the verdict of that case. How is Donald Trump going to handle something like that?
Make it worse.
If you like, I'd give someone else a chance to talk, but I can respond if you like.
Whoever.
If no one else wants to respond, then yeah, Rob, you can respond.
Okay. Yeah, I don't want to dominate from the right, conversation from the right side of it, but I think Donald Trump will respond. I actually think that he should have done better in being kind of more of what you would consider an authoritarian in response to this. I actually talked to Destiny about this as it was happening, and shockingly to me, Destiny admitted in March that people like de Blasio were actually allowing the riots to occur because they thought it politically harmed Trump. And so I think that Trump should have stepped in sooner and deployed the National Guard, even if someone like de Blasio protested, because it is horribly unethical, immoral, and practically terrible for Democratic mayors to allow their police to stand down and allow these riots to occur. I think that's terrible. I think that the riots would occur no matter who was president. I think Joe Biden and Barack Obama would do more of what they always do, which is pander to minority communities and disparage law enforcement. I think that we need a more nuanced response to that, which I will fully admit to you, I don't think Donald Trump has been the best for. But I think that the idea that we should reject Donald Trump because a bunch of Joe Biden's voters are going to take to the streets and create riots if they don't get a verdict the way they want, or if they don't get an election the way they want, is nonsensical. I mean, I have people mocking me earlier, kind of suggesting that I would cry if Trump loses the election. I'm predicting Trump to lose the election, so why would I take that bet? I will go about my life as usual. I'll try to advocate for my side to win next time. That's what I'll do. I will not riot. We see that DC, Chicago, other places like that are boarding up their stores right now. They're not worried about Trump supporters. They're worried about Biden supporters if Biden loses. So the idea that we should embrace the mob and give in to the mob and say, my God, we have to vote for Joe Biden because we're fearful people will riot is insane. And the riots will only get worse until we combat them by throwing the people engaged in them in prison for lengthy sentences so we can encourage peaceful protest.
Something that I'm kind of caught up on there, and again, like I'm trying to approach this very calmly because this topic is very near and dear to my heart, as I have people who are in jail right now for peacefully protesting. My concern is neither president may handle the situation properly. But something that I think is very interesting is Donald Trump's lack of talking to any individual who's on the ground, whether it be in Portland, Dallas, Atlanta, Newark, Trenton, California. So I guess maybe an approach could be that he actually talks to the people on the ground and actually tries to listen to their demands. I'm just trying to figure out what to do here.
Go ahead, get someone else.
Look, for me, like it comes down to a simple idea of understanding what the office of the president should or shouldn't be doing, for one, right? I think that all the conversations with regard to it should pretty much start there. And then when it comes to talking about, particular candidates, you pick out what they're strong with and what they're weak about, and you compare the pros and cons of that, right? Right now in this country, what we need is somebody who understands business and numbers, and they can get the economy coming back for us, right? That's what we need. Right. So
want to stop BLM? Like if you want to stop the protests, you could pass police reform. Like that's overwhelmingly what it's about. And somehow we haven't.
Police reform is one of those issues that comes back to the root issue, which is the war on drugs. Right. How is that really? I mean, like just pass like an excessive use of force bill. Like it's really simple. Say that you can only use deadly force in necessary circumstances and that you ban chokeholds. Right.
Like it's relatively simple.
Yeah, that won't stop
everybody. I've listened to everybody.
That's literally what it caused. I mean, it was the death of George Floyd that set up all of this. All right. Honestly, if they passed literally anything, that's going to do a lot better than literally like stalling the bill in the Senate. Right. Like if they had put this before, like it's going to make it a lot better. All right, and I would say that anything that like persists past that would have a lot less of a justification,
Yeah, just to keep things a little bit more clear, Ahmaud Arbery predates George Floyd, but again, I would agree that the American zeitgeist of people understanding what happened was with George Floyd, because again, that situation was incredibly tragic. With that being said, I don't necessarily I agree with RGR here that having some type of police reform is one way of looking like you're tackling the injustice. And I say this all the time, that riots are the children of protest, And protest
So
is the child of injustice. So for
Joe-
some reason, we feel like if we tackle, especially on the right, if you tackle these protests and these riots, that it's going to stop the injustice. And it's just not going to do that. We see this in practice. And again, I see the bubblings of this. The Breonna Taylor case did not go according to plan. We see that the George Floyd case won't go according to plan. And this looks very eerily like LA of 92. Incredibly eerily.
If I may respond, like I think that like there's a good thought, and I like the discussion on this. I don't disagree that we probably do some sort of national order. Now, I think the particulars of it will be very difficult. I do not think that something like that would stop the riots, and that's because I think Black Lives Matter, not the individuals that are necessarily participating on the ground level, but the way that the organization's being ran. I think that it is misidentifying the problem, and I ultimately think that they're basically a terrorist political movement that are trying to use force to intimidate people to issue their Marxist decrees. So if I just real quick,
they use force.
Well, I mean,
fewer than
look,
220 reported demonstrations have even turned violent. Like it's lower than 7%. Like for
If
saying
we
that
had
it's a terrorist
220
organization, it's pretty. For saying that it's a terrorist organization, that's a pretty bad terrorist organization.
No, if we had 220 instances of violence with the Tea Party, people would have been screaming their heads up to arrest anyone who was connected.
Except
to
that we also see evidence that most of those instances are caused by police first instigating that conduct.
That's not true. That's
not
true.
true.
No,
hold on. That's the problem, though, right?
Yeah, it's totally
Okay.
It comes down to the war on drugs.
Okay. Any
give me a moment. Give me a moment. So there's Turk and a counter. So I'm gonna give it to Turk first and then counter afterwards.
Yeah, so I'm trying to see if Trump has a legislation ideas towards criminal reform. I'm still looking that up. I know Joe Biden has stuff on his website about it. But at what point does it become the local municipalities' responsibility to ban these actions and for them to enforce these things? Because like what Rob said earlier, a lot of these incidents are happening in larger city environments, and the police forces are being told to back down in the riots. So it's like, at what point are the cities held accountable for their own police departments? Why do we have to rely on big daddy government to tell everyone what to do?
I can give some background on this from a legal perspective. I mean, again, I worked on this summer. So basically, like when we're looking at whether or not states and local, like usually what like police reform and police use of force is governed by federal and state law, right? So like you have state law, which is governing what state law or state officers are able to do. In addition to like federal officers that are operating in state parameters, and then you have federal law governing what federal agents are able to do, right? Normally passing like comprehensive police reform at a federal level is going to set a massive precedent in being able to get other states to be able to do that, because when you are researching like how to pass police reform, like from a like strategic legislative matter, usually you look at the precedent of other countries or other states, right? So like for Maryland, I had to draft a bill this summer, and I had to look at what everyone across the United States was doing, right? And really across the board, everyone was basically looking at the federal government and seeing what they were going to do, right? The federal government is the leader in all of this, right? So if you want meaningful police reform,
that's exactly
totally
right.
The way it is.
That's exactly right. I'm glad you're finally catching up, everybody, right? This has everything to do with the federal government. Whenever it first started the war on drugs, it built up its fucking infrastructure in the cities and started the fucking rounding up of people, right? They started that shit from the top and it came down. Reality is they shouldn't even have the fucking authority to do it anyway. But we're left here dealing with this fucking shit, and everybody wants to talk about everything that is a symptom of this fucking problem. But the real fucking problem is the war on drugs, because that addresses police reform. It addresses counterpoints point to the murder solve rate, right? Because before this, there was a lot more trust when it came to police versus what we have now. And now they have the ability to go get a motherfucking warrant for just any fucking thing, conduct a no-knock raid into your home, and now your fucking sanctity of your fucking house is done just because of this bullshit.
Okay, I don't disagree. I don't disagree with a lot. I think that we do need to have a look at the war on drugs and how it's implemented. But Riley, just a couple questions for you. What did you think about Tim Scott's bill?
Can you describe it to me? I'm not familiar.
Yeah, Tim Scott was a black Republican who put forth a police reform bill that would do a lot of things that activists have been calling for, but the Democrats roundly rejected it and wouldn't even discuss it.
Can I jump in here, because I think I can
have you
address...
written down counter? You can go, and then after that, we're gonna actually have to start going into closing statements.
Okay. So what I'm fearful of in a Trump presidency is the fact that, you know, the momentum of the Black Lives Matter movement and the momentum of, you know, basically police reform isn't going to get anywhere, and it's basically going to be wholeheartedly rejected, and all of this momentum is going to be for naught. That's what I'm worried about with the Trump presidency. With the Biden presidency, what I'm worried about is basically the political momentum that's coming from the Black Lives Matter movement is going to come in some like tepid, watered down bill that's going to have like 2 little things in it about police reform, and it's not actually going to do anything. So that, just to kind of say, like, I sent this in the message, but there's a website called 8 Can't Wait. Ban chokeholds and strangleholds, require de-escalation, require warning before shooting, require exhaust alternatives before shooting, duty to intervene, ban shooting moving at vehicles, require use of force continuum, require comprehensive reporting. Now, half of this shit I would fucking reject as an ex-cop. I wouldn't want half of this shit anyways. But at the same time, at least these are actual proposals from somebody who's a police reformist, probably a progressive, probably a liberal. And these are ways that we can actually like forward this movement. I agree with CTV that like the drug war is probably the root problem. But right now we need to start chipping away at the edges of this issue and try to get serious things that will impact people's lives in a positive way. And I'm worried that the political momentum with Trump just is going to get exhausted by Trump.
Lost you there, buddy.
Yeah,
Lost you.
So I want to just say something quick.
Yeah, you
None
go,
of these
and then we got to go into closing right after you finish.
None of these proposals would have solved anything that happened in Philadelphia over the past week. So this isn't good enough.
And
Again,
what
with the-
counterpoints, dude? Look, I am so sick and tired. We've been dealing with this kick the can down the road fucking type of legislation. Oh, well, if we can just get this one thing right, then that's a meaningful step. Fuck that shit. We, the people, need to go demand that the government fucking end this shit, because the power is in the fucking people. Not those fucking people sitting up there in their goddamn suits and they walk into the halls of Congress, right? The power is the fucking people.
You first.
Oh, I'm ready. Who wants to go? We can line this shit up.
Yeah.
I can already tell you how we need to actually shut down the infrastructure if you're ready to go.
Okay,
right?
well,
But-
okay, let's
listen
before
to
we
your plan.
before we
Yes.
start our revolution with chapping. So what's okay? Suggestible. Let's go into closing statements. Okay, we're all gonna have about a 1 minute. I might let you go over it a little bit since we have 10 minutes left and we have 8 people. I'm gonna start in the top left hand corner. This will be your outro and your ending statement. So you know if you want to go last because you're still thinking about it, just say skip and I'll come back to you later. I'm going to start in the top left-hand corner, like always, with RGR.
Yeah, I think I'll be able to do this. So basically, I would still maintain that voting for Trump would be bad. If we want to go like in order from like the arguments as we had them, starting backwards going. Anyway, so like with police reform, it's really important to be able to understand that like I would maintain, and I don't like I hear everyone saying that like, oh well, if Trump passed police reform, then these riots would still continue. I mean, like all of the evidence I've heard for that is just speculation, right? Like the response, like the protests and subsequent riots were in immediate response to the fact that there was police excessive use of force. There is a bill that has passed the House. It's at the Senate. Trump could go and talk to Mitch McConnell and be like, hey, pass this bill, and it hasn't happened. And I feel like there's like a giant degree of culpability there that is really hard to overlook, in my opinion. I would still say mishandling of COVID. We didn't go into it too much, but I mean, we talked about it all the prior debate, so I would adhere to that. What else is there? And yeah, like climate change is still like a really big issue, and bringing it back in from the earlier discussion, I mean, we have someone who just does not agree with the science of global warming at all. Like I hear people be like, oh, well, we need to have more nuanced view. Oh, well, we need to have more nuanced discussion. Well, I mean, you can't really have a nuanced discussion between someone who does and does not believe in it, right? I would rather operate from a perspective of even if you want something that's more extreme, and wrap it up. Yeah. Okay, and also, I also want federal healthcare protection. Yeah. That's nice to me, and I want
You might
that.
want to shout out who you are. Yeah, there you go.
Yep, we'll do that. Hi, my name is Riley Grace Roshong. I do political content on YouTube and Twitch. Google my name, and you'll find me. Thank you.
Okay, next I'm going to give it over to TheTerk.
Yeah, so basically, we can talk about all the points in other debates, but all I can say is that I think Trump is going to be a far better leader, and the leadership team, even though Joe disagrees, the country is in a good state from an economic standpoint, and that's really a big thing I'm concerned about. COVID was a complete disaster across the board, across the world, and we're handling it as we get the information and all that. So, to completely say that Trump has been a complete failure just because of, a worldwide pandemic is pretty short-sighted. But anyways, I just don't think Joe Biden's a good candidate. I honestly don't think he's going to be around too long. And I really think his entire Democratic leadership is going to be not the thing people are voting for in next week. So I think that's pretty bad. As for shout outs, I'm TheTerk. If you go to YouTube, I'm dropping a video tomorrow about the AMD and NVIDIA's latest graphics cards. So if you're into that kind of stuff, definitely hit subscribe.
Okay, next I'm going to throw it over to Joe Lewis.
Yeah, I'm going to focus this on just the Donald Trump angle. The three things that I mentioned from the start of it, it's his lack of response to the riots and demonstrations, the First Step Act being fucking terrible, and his cabinet. But I want to make something very kind of clear because it kind of gets skirts a lot when we talk about the protests, and I kind of want to set the record straight. Black Lives Matter and Black Lives Matter Incorporated are two separate things. Black Lives Matter is a movement. Black Lives Matter Incorporated is an organization. So when you categorize Black Lives Matter as a Marxist, terrorist organization, or even Antifa, you're categorizing movements, not organizations. And you're putting these organizations that you think exist at the same level of actual extreme leftism, like the Weatherman Underground. And that's completely disingenuous because these were literally white folks that bombed fucking things. So with that being said, just don't say it's a terrorist organization. It makes you look like an idiot. But that being said, I'm Joe Lewis, and O's a zero. You can follow me on Twitch from that. And also, if you want to argue on Twitter, we can argue on Twitter. I'm trying my best. I granted peace with liberals, so now it's shit on some right people.
Wonderful. Next, I'm going to throw it over to Rob Noerr.
All right, thanks everyone. Yeah, I had fun. Everyone here, I would be welcome to talk to again, and I think you all seem like nice people, even if we disagree. Real quick on Black Lives Matter, I understand the point you're making. Again, I'm not saying everyone who participates in it. I believe Black Lives Matter lowercase. That's why I'm against the ideology of Black Lives Matter uppercase, because I think the policies they advocate for will be terrible for the United States, especially inner city Black communities, which will suffer from a decreased policing and for destroying the structures of the nuclear family first and foremost. I think that I was able to prove in this debate that actually you see that Joe Biden is just a empty shell that will be the corporatist and the deep state candidate. That's why the wealthiest people endorse him. That's why they've supported him in the Democratic Party. That's why the FBI and the CIA, that, by the way, my friends on the left used to despise when they were lying us into the Iraq war. That's why all of a sudden they're against pulling troops out. That's why Donald Trump having historic peace deals in the Middle East aren't being talked about, because it is not in line with the military industrial complex that is supporting people like Joe Biden. Joe Biden will be a radical because he'll allow the radicals behind him to do things like suggesting packing the court, passing disastrous policies like the Green New Deal. And we could see how the media and the FBI and all these people have engaged in corruption and refusing to cover stories that people
Gotta wrap it up.
Just say conspiracy. And I'll say I'm Normal America. You can find me at Normal America with Rob Noerr on YouTube, Normal America on D Live. I'm on Twitch, and I'm also on Periscope. I will be doing a 24-hour live stream starting Monday, 8 a.m. Eastern time before the election. So please come join me if you like what I had to say. Thanks so much, everyone.
Maybe I can talk to you on Monday. That'd be interesting.
Yeah.
I'll send it over to Counterpoints.
Yeah, so my name's Counterpoints. You can follow me on Twitter at Counterpoints, CONORPOINTS. You can also find my YouTube channel. I've had discussions, hope to have more discussions with everybody in here. I did begrudgingly vote for Biden because I am worried, like Norm and Turk mentioned, that basically, he's going to die a month into his presidency. Kamala Harris is going to take over. She's going to push more aggressive gun control. Maybe some of the more progressive stuff will come out. But at the same time, I think there's really real concerns that need to be addressed, like Black Lives Matter as a movement needs to be addressed. We do need police reform. We do need to improve the material conditions in the Black community and minority communities. There's real issues here, and I'm actually really excited to see smart righties, smart lefties kind of taking each other on without calling each other dumbasses for an hour and a half. So follow me on my socials. Always happy to be here. It was an awesome conversation. Dan, you're still an asshole, but you do really good memes.
Okay. Next, it actually is Dan.
Mad cause bad. And mad because all you guys have are fucking shit Alex Jones tier conspiracy theories. It's always this fucking grand plot by a whole bunch of fucking like media coming out there with fake news and shit. I bet if I asked you guys how many people died in the Holocaust, you'd be like, well, I don't really know if that happened. Y'all are fucking off your goddamn fucking rocker. You guys are literally the equivalent of when I picture a Trump voter in my mind, we have the meme of people like wearing sunglasses and a giant grid. You guys fall so into that, and I don't understand why. There's no good thing going on here, okay? If I can vote for Biden, someone who's actually going to be affected by his fucking taxes, getting hurt financially, I don't understand what you guys are doing. Do you just hate immigrants that fucking much? Like, just move on. We're not in 1950s America where there's like white neighborhoods anymore. It's done, okay? I get it. All right, listen, Trump is going to Biden was going to cost me money, and I'll still vote for him because I understand that there's people less fortunate than me, and he's better. He's better when it comes to climate science. He's better when it comes to just being fair to people who have less. And I don't understand where all this is coming from. Just everyone wants to like hold people down, and it's fucked. Okay,
gonna shout yourself out.
Yeah, I don't know.
Okay, cool. That was Will Neff. Next we have Destiny.
Yeah, I mean, it's all already been said. I mean, like the Trump administration, the happiest I'll be when they're gone is to get rid of all these conspiracy theories about the deep state crazy shit. This deep state that's so unbelievably powerful that they can like shift everything that's going on behind the scenes in all of our intelligence agencies, but somehow still let Hillary Clinton lose the election, and potentially even throw the election for her by the statements that they made, namely Comey. So yeah, I don't know. I'll be happy when Joe Biden is president, hopefully with a Democrat Senate, House, and presidency. Hopefully we can get some meaningful legislation passed in this country instead of just do nothing like Republicans have been doing. And yeah.
Well, now I'm going to throw it over to CTV to wrap us up.
All right, well, I guess I'll just wrap this up with what I kind of opened with. We didn't elect Trump to begin with because he was a virologist, right? And we, were expecting some pandemic and was going to have the best guy in office to be able to solve that particular problem. That being said, the initial failings with regard to the COVID response can be pointed directly at the CDC, right? And I would say that that's the people's attempt to try to control the issue of public health in any kind of way at the federal level, right? What we need to have in this country is 50 CDCs to be able to solve these issues, specifically with regard to public health, so it's closer to its constituents. With that being said, Trump is the clear option for the future because what we need is a businessman to get in there and turn that economy back up so that we can continue to have the goods and services that we as Americans rely on a daily basis. And with that, I am Critically Thinking Veteran. I stream occasionally. I argue with people on Twitter. If you'd like to argue with me as well, you can find me at original_CTV.
Okay, oh, snap, we have a last-second guest. Suspect Sushi is going to come in here. I'm just kidding. Okay, we're going to wrap it up. I really appreciate you all coming by. Thank you for taking some...
Can I say something real quick? Hey, counterpoints. When you talked about smart left and right wing people not calling each other names, I assume you didn't mean Dan, correct?
No. Dan thinks we're all retards, but it's okay.
Well, can we please not all...
true.
Okay, second time stream. Please do not use that word. I'm going to end it now. Okay, see you all later. I'm heading out. Okay, goodbye.